Still singing the
Yes.
thing? Okay.
Yes, we are. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We are officially live. Karen,
Woo-hoo.
Lauren, welcome. Welcome.
See who else do we got? Yep. Oh, and Stacy. Hello, Stacy.
My beautiful wife. She supports me.
My hair. I was hearing two of you. Give me my hair.
Double trouble.
There we go. Okay, no, it was just the reminder came through all of a sudden. So there we go. Now it's fixed.
All right.
All right.
So for the beginning, I had given you the option, and I also don't know the name.
Oh, that's right. I didn't tell you.
Hey, Ash.
Heather.
What's that?
I assume you're talking about the singing thing. If you're talking about something else, let me know.
Yeah, I'm talking about the singing thing.
Yeah, her name's Heather.
Heather, okay.
And she's gonna kill me later, but I love it. All right.
I don't think I said hi to Ash. Hang on one sec.
Wait.
Let's say hi. And
also hello, Dawn.
Hey,
and hello,
Dawn,
Ash.
new guy.
Yep.
We love new guys.
We do. Oop. All right, there we go. It keeps like going over the YouTube thing, and that confuses me because it looks so similar to the StreamYard thing. It's messing me up. So there we go. Now I can actually
I got StreamYard, and then I got the pop-out chat over on the right-hand side. So that way I can actually keep track of who's saying what before it takes like 5 minutes to upload on the other side.
Right.
Okay. So it's Heather. Are we doing one line? Are we singing it together? Is it just the sultry sound of my voice the entire time? Like, what are we doing?
You follow all, or you lead, I'll follow. I used to be in choir. I can handle it. Okay.
I'll probably just do the one line.
Okay.
And then the name. Okay. We'll go to that.
All right.
So everybody, today is ASL's sister's birthday. Yep. And so we are going to sing one line of happy birthday to her. And if we don't see Mrs. Howell again later after this, we know that, well, Heather got her.
You can just call me Howell. It's a lot simpler.
Mrs. Howell just reminds me of Gilligan's Island.
Makes me think of like a Addams Family joke. Anyway.
Oh, all right. Anyway. All right. Happy birthday, dear Heather. Happy birthday to you.
Cha cha cha.
Wow. All right, and we'll do it in the.
Yep. All right, and feel free to put a little piece of birthday cake in the chat for my sister. That way she can like have very good reason to kill me later. She hates being in the spotlight. She hates it.
Oh, as much as Sean?
Maybe more so, actually.
Oh,
like,
that's a lot.
She does do very well with like being. She is so gonna murder me later. She does do very well. I'm waiting for my phone to go off. What the fuck are you doing? Why? But anyway, she does really well with like being in control and being in charge and things, and she's really good at it. I will give her that in a heartbeat. But yeah, being on the spotlight things, which works really well for me because I always take the damn spotlight. I'm sure everyone's shocked. All right.
I'm very, very, very shocked. Yes.
All right.
So I'm super excited because this is something that you and I have talked about very briefly.
Yes.
And just on how writing fight scenes tends to suck so often. And yes.
I brought props.
Yes. Oh, is that your
that my super highlighted copy? Yes.
Yeah, that is super highlighted. Is your sister's name Heather Miller by chance? I think she found it.
And murder is
Hello. I'm just going to showcase your posts as well, Heather.
Yeah, I'm killing her. I will survive because I'm killing her first.
That's you're taking a preemptive strike.
There we go. Hi, Heather. I love you. That's as happy as I'm ever going to get, ever. But yes, that is my sister.
And I just gotta say, your shirt is fantastic. Like,
oh yeah,
writer shirts are the best.
Oh yeah.
birthday.
Yeah. Shout out to Billy. Oh my god, I just forgot his last name. Owens Jr. Wow, I just totally forgot his last name. Sorry, Underdog. But yeah, he actually made me the shirt and shipped it to me without like any warning. So I was having a shitty day, went to my PO box, and suddenly this was sitting there.
Nice. This is
I know, right? Yep. That is
all right.
That is pretty.
So
pretty
fight scenes. Right. One of the things that everybody struggles with that I've noticed, and as an editor, I see this a lot, so much. I see with the fight scenes, and so I'm really curious. I'd like to kind of address some of what you found in that book,
yeah,
and just kind of some of the big picture things that weren't necessarily like the best advice. And then chat obviously is open on the this side, I think, for you guys. This side for you.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions about fight scenes, post them in the chat over there. Everything's reversed.
Yeah. I know, right? It's so weird being able to read my shirt.
Yeah.
I always have to like edit that so people can read my shirt during my videos. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
So post in the comments if you have questions about fight scenes, but we're going to just kind of go through some of what is in that book. And then we're going to do kind of a scene diagnosis a little bit from Arya Stark versus Brienne of Tarth.
Oh boy.
About that video, because I really liked the way that they show it taking place. And then Howell has also given me the permission to look at the fight scene, and to avoid a lot of the spoilers, I've gone through and picked out the things that
I was wondering how you were going to do that.
Yeah, I went through, highlighted the stuff, and then deleted everything else in between, so that way it didn't give away a bunch of spoilers.
Yeah, got my unicorns. I can just hide every time I'm like, no.
Attack of the unicorn. Okay, so why don't you take it away with kind of some of the things that you saw in the book that you may or may not.
I think may not's a good start, because that's going to be longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who are not familiar with me, I don't, there's a few names here I don't recognize. So I do book reviews on my channel. I do both storybook reviews as well as craft book reviews. And this book was recommended to me by a writer that I actually have a lot of respect for, Carol Brown. And after reading her book, where she wrote some fantastic fight scenes, and she said, oh, well, this helped me a ton. Of course, I'm going to pick it up, right?
Yeah.
So this is Writing Fight Scenes by Rain Hall. Apologies, the glare and my window are not agreeing with each other, but there we go. And as you guys probably saw earlier, I have a lot to say about this damn thing. Now, I will say, when I was reading the reviews for this, one of the things I saw constantly was, this book is sexist. And I was like, there's no way. That term's thrown around so much right now. It's almost lost meaning. It's sad because there is actually problems there, but whatever. And then I picked this up and I was like, holy crap, it is. Because it makes a lot of presumptions about men and women. One of the ones I remember, and tell me if I'm somehow here wrong, Howard. I'm not a man, so I'm not going to assume. But one of the things that said in here that made me just roll my eyes and run upstairs and talk to my uncles and my husband was, men know how to fight because they're encouraged to fight.
Like, not accurate at all.
Yeah, I was like, every time I've ever seen boys fight in school, or girls, because that was the other thing, is girls are discouraged from fighting. I'm like, yeah, so are boys. Like, did you not go to high school? Principal's office was loaded with those idiots. I'm sorry. So it was saying that, they naturally know how to throw a punch, and I'm like, that's such a load of crap.
Yeah, if you've seen my 6-year-old swing his arms around, I mean, not even remotely. Yeah, it's propeller arms.
Yeah, so that is cute though. Cute imagery. But yeah, so that was one of my biggest issues, is that it focused a lot on presumptions. And I think that's a lot of the things that I also do as a newbie writer. So I want to try and not hold it against her, but at the same time, she published it, I didn't.
Right.
And then the other thing that I saw in a lot of the online reviews after I read it, and I was kind of going deeper to figure out my review, was a lot of people who are supposedly martial arts experts, or people who have actually taken fighting courses, have said that this book is actually very incorrect. But my biggest problem by far, and this is the one that I talked to you about, was it didn't tell me how to actually write the fight scene. It just gave me the mechanics and the background information to understand how the fight scene goes together. But that's not going to tell me how to write it in a way that is either understandable or compelling. And those are the important factors that we have to face as a writer.
Right.
Oh my God, Lauren, I love you.
I love that.
Yep. My toddler.
Headbutts. No one wins with headbutts. And actually, let's start with that right there. Before I address, since that's a great point. No one wins with headbutts in a fight. Like I know
that should be your last resort. I think
it should absolutely be the last resort. So, like for example, in because I watched a video clip of the Hound versus Brienne, and there's at one point where they just grab each other, like, and then they're both still fully functioning, and I'm like, there's no way.
Right.
No way. Literally, they've concussed themselves.
Yeah. Now, I remember accidentally headbutting a girl in high school, and I can't explain how I accidentally did that, if need be. But I do remember she and I were goofing off. We managed to go boom, and that was a simple like boom, and it was still one of the most painful things I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
The only thing that has surpassed it so far is a migraine. That is the only thing.
It freaking hurts. And so no one in their right mind is going to purposefully bang heads together.
Right.
And so, just as a general rule for fight scenes, like if you're going to write something, it's going to be accidental. Yeah. Like if they're grappling and stuff, they're going to smash heads and be like, oh, son of a...
that or they're damn desperate. Like there is one scene, I won't give complete spoilers, but there is one scene in book 3 towards the end, actually. This is like the end of the whole series, where actually I do have a spot where one of my characters has to sit there and figure out a way out of the situation, and all she has available is her skull, and she's like, fuck it, boom. And I can tell you, I did not enjoy writing that. So I'm sure I did not enjoy experiencing it.
Yeah. And, like for an example of headbutt,
I do like Don. Well, I saw Don White's comment. That one's pretty freaking epic.
That's true. Like dwarves, okay, like that's going into like the skeletal structure of dwarves, because they're dense. They're very dense peoples.
This is true. You don't really want to headbutt with Gimli anytime soon.
Yeah, no, not so much. The thing, like with a headbutt, like if someone has you from behind and you can't escape, and you throw your head back. Ooh. Like that can make sense because you're going to hit the bridge of somebody's nose and it's going to hurt.
That hurt my face when you said that.
Yeah. Now I've taken a knee to the back of my head. Ooh. And we were running around playing water balloon tag out in a grassy field. I was running from this girl who ran like a gazelle. It was just like, she's like this, just like full spread. And I'm just like slipped on the wet grass, and her knee just went bam. Oh. And I blocked out for a good 5-10 seconds. And then I came back and it felt like my head had just gone whoosh, and I was like,
okay. You need to highlight this one from Trope. Let me go ahead and be commanding here of your broadcast. Sorry. But the reason I want to highlight this is because I actually have a similar story. And I told you about this actually, because it's hard to know if I do have a little cartilage break in my nose here where it's a little crooked. And the reason I have that is because I was stupidly dolphin diving in a pool and smashed my head against the freaking concrete barrier of the pool. Oh. I did not realize how bad it was till I got home, and my parents were like, "You look like a unicorn. What did you do to your head?" And like this was all swollen, so we couldn't tell it was busted. So yeah, I'm right there with you. If you hit your head the right way, you're not gonna know, especially when you're a dumb kid and you hurt yourself all the time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, note to self: don't get into a headbutt competition. Laura, don't do that. Laura
and I will have a headbutt competition sometime. She and I can see who's more hard-headed.
Yeah, just like on the live stream, just like constantly like. Yeah. And
right now, so that's my 25 cents on fight scenes as far as that book goes. But I think you've also had similar experience with another book, right? Because you've said something similar to me.
Well, yeah, I've seen it so often And when you mention just the mechanics and stuff, like when I hear people talk about fight scenes, that is typically what they're talking about. They're talking about the mechanics of it. They're not talking about how to actually write the fight scene in a way that's engaging in any way.
Right. They talk about the yin, but they don't talk about that yang of craft.
Right. And while the first part is absolutely essential, what ends up happening is that you end up with what I call an echo chamber. And this is what happens. I use a similar term when people are just writing dialogue and like the entire world around them just fades away. And it's just dialogue. And then they're like, oh, we're in the world still. This is cool. I forgot this was happening. I'm like, echo chamber. Same can happen with a fight scene where it's parry, thrust, run away, attack, parry, thrust, run away, attack. And it just becomes this wash, rinse, repeat that loses its excitement.
It also, it can get really repetitive. Now, there's a beauty in fight scenes. I find there is a beauty to repetitiveness in the sense that you can make it a rhythm, and fights do naturally develop a rhythm. But when you take that to the point that it's monotonous is where it becomes problematic, I find. Like one of my friends, I'm not going to say who, she has I'm not going to use a word I don't know how to say right now, but she has an absolute love for saying the word snarl. Every fight scene, snarl comes in. Now, it works really well in her writing, but at the same time, it's like by the fifth fight scene, you're kind of tired of it. And that's I think another thing is that we tend to want those really short, quick verbs, and we tend to forget that in the process we're gonna really make it clear. Like I use growl a lot too, so I can't give her too much shit. But we tend to make it to the point where the reader's like, okay, I'm now aware of the writer. Shut up.
Right. And it has to, and well, the good news is, Lauren, is you're going to learn a lot of how to fix some of this stuff.
That is what we are here for, though. I may have to get up in a second and go grab my glasses. I suppose I don't have them, and I'm like not seeing this computer screen as clearly as I'd like. Anyway.
But you can grab them.
All right, let's do that now before it becomes like 2 hours and like, oh, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Here.
Any questions
shit about me for a minute?
I'm not going to serenade you. I've already done that once. I feel like a lot of books try to be like a movie. Yes. Cool moves. Oh, with the cool moves, it hurts. Yeah. With the visuals, it is much harder. Much harder. So like I tried to do this in my fan fiction story, Boromir Returns. And so I actually bring Boromir back to life. He's training with one of the main MCs. And the main MC is basically trying to get him to not only have brute strength, but also have a little bit of finesse. Because let's face it, Boromir is like... well, besides being the meat shield for the hobbits, Doge, he is also kind of the brute strength. He is the strongest guy out of the Fellowship. And so I had this move that was an elvish move that was supposed to be more fluid. And I actually reenacted it to try and get a feel for, one, whether it was feasible, two, so that way I could actually understand how to write it. And it worked, but it took some clever crafting of how to really figure out the right words to use. And I only used it twice. So I used it once. I used the move once when he was training, and then I used the move once again when he kicked somebody's butt. I don't remember who it was. And it worked. So if you can show off like one cool move, then like you've accomplished something. Trying to do too much, it's just not going to work out well.
Yeah. I only caught the tail end of that, but I will say, if you get too fancy, it gets too complicated to read.
Yeah. Lauren said, I spoke with a professional at my local Renaissance fair. I love those. Worked with movie producers and choreography fight scenes. Asked him what one thing fantasy movie will get wrong. Fights last forever. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. They feel really short, but yeah, they do.
Sean. Yeah, I agree. Fight scenes do tend to last a bit too long. You know, like in it's different in movies, right? So like you have an epic fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith. One of the most beautifully choreographed fight scenes, in my opinion, that there is. And for those of you
supporting anything prequel Star Wars related, but continue otherwise.
I don't blame you there. The lightsaber battles that they had, I think, really are what made the prequels. Those were probably the only good things that actually came out of the prequels were the fight scenes between like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul. Those fight scenes, if you look at it, they were beautifully choreographed and it matched the tone with the music. But they went on for a long time. Right. They can get away with that because of the visuals, the flashy, you can't do that same thing through like 3 chapters of a book unless you really, really know how to keep a pace that feels like it's at breakneck speed. And it gives the illusion that it's moving faster than it really is.
Right. No, I would definitely say that's one thing. I've not struggled with that. The other problem I struggle with though is writing fight scenes that are so short that they're almost barren of enough detail to get the point across. Like I had one fight scene, I think it was less than a third of a chapter, and it just like it wasn't like we're done. It was meant to be a fight scene, and it just did not have enough girth to it because I was trying to keep things too succinct. So there is definitely, I think, a balance between those because a lot of the tips out there that you'll get is keep it quick, keep it simple. Yeah, you can overdo that a little bit, especially if you're an underwriter.
Yeah. And this brings up a fabulous question and really what's at the heart of writing good fight scenes is incorporating the world around them. So if you're going to do a fight scene, you have to take into consideration beforehand what the environment is and how it's going to affect. So that brings us to a good point here. It's going to take me a second to get there.
People bring up so many good points, but yeah, I do definitely agree. And I apologize. I have never learned how to pronounce your first name, if it's Jenny or Jin, but Noble. Yes, absolutely. Considering your environment's a key factor because that helped me a ton.
Yes. To Sean's point, or to What Now's point, it does have a lot to do with the POV as well. Right. It is the synchronized dance of both. Right. And I'm going to try and pull up here the one that I wanted to share.
Well, it's not even like also like if we're talking fight scenes, I mean, some people I'm sure are going to have battle scenes as well on their mind when they're talking this, especially with that thumbnail.
Yeah, totally.
And I think the thing is you have to make sure that you're, one thing that she did say in this book that I do appreciate, one of the few things that I will give Miss Hall some credit for is she pointed out that when you're writing a fight scene, you do need to keep it kind of narrowed down to what your character's thinking. And it's best if you keep it to one character's thoughts so that it is easy enough to follow. Because frankly, if you are over here on this battlefield and then suddenly you're over here, it's going to disconnect the reader from the experience and it's going to make it seem a lot less visceral than it should be.
Yep. You should not under any circumstances jump POV in the middle of a fight scene.
Yeah.
Ever. Like you can finish a chapter and then switch to somebody else's point of view in a different side of the battle, but never in the same chapter because
your book's formatted that way anyway, because then they're going to know to expect that switch. But yeah, in the middle of chapter or scene, exactly.
Yeah, not bueno. Okay, I'm going to pull up.
Need more coffee. I'm right there with you, Lauren.
Always more coffee. Okay.
I only get black coffee. It's basically tar with caffeine.
Okay. Is this sharing?
It is sharing.
Woohoo! Okay.
Ooh, we're gonna be pulling up that fight scene, are we?
Yes.
Analyze.
So trying.
Oh, is this a Game of Thrones thing?
Yeah, this is the Game of Thrones
I've
one.
never seen Game of Thrones. People give me so much shit for that. My mom's a huge fan for it.
I don't. I only watched the first season and I stopped after that.
I'm just not even interested. Now, this is partially like we both know. I love urban fantasy, medieval fantasy, and I don't always get along. So that's part of my problem with it. I think is that it's just not my jam.
Yeah. Okay. So here, so what I want you guys to watch here is the dynamics that is taking place in this fight scene. So not only are we watching two people just sword fight, take in the surroundings here. So they're in a very rocky mountainous terrain, and watch how the fight is happening. So they're fighting with swords. He just straight up sucker punched her in the face.
In the face.
So she's backing up. She sucker punches him in the face.
Yep.
He's very upset that this is happening.
He got face
kicked by a girl. Notice he's fighting with one hand. She's fighting with two.
Yeah.
Again, they just backhand each other. So I'm going to pause it there for just a second. So you have two people that are, there we go. You have two people that are fighting. They're moving. They're on the move, right? It's not just stationary, just like whack, 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 whack. Right. They're moving on uneven terrain. She's backing up. He's pressing forward. They see an opening. They're not going in with a sword. They're going in with their hand. They're backhanding each other or punching each other.
Thinking really quick and using what they have available at that time.
Exactly.
I think it's also good to point out, though, real quick, there was something at the very beginning there where I think it was her, because it came out a weird second, because I don't let the dog out. But it looked like he backed her up into a spot where she tumbled down the terrain. And I thought that was a very simple but effective use of that terrain. Just
Yeah, exactly.
That also raises the stakes for a second. Like, she is beyond vulnerable when she's tumbling down a damn road.
Yeah.
Hillside.
And I mean, this guy is huge. Yeah. So, it's pretty crazy. So let's.
Yeah. Well, I think that brings up another point that if you want me to hold up and address later, you have to also be willing to address, that your characters are going to have different abilities, right?
Exactly.
So
see, now she's disarmed him.
Right.
Then you have epic scene.
Yep.
Dude literally is grabbing it with his bare hands.
Yeah.
And now they're both disarmed. Ooh. Right in the nuggets.
That would be using one of those differences in body type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like you guys can see how the fight has progressed. It's changed. Right. So they were both on equal footing. Now they got to a place where neither is on equal footing. They've gone from armed to unarmed. And I mean, the scene coming up in just a second, we won't get to it because I think it's made it's clarified the point enough. Right. But it has now, like, she literally bites and rips off his ear.
I think the fact that he grabbed the sword like that, it's a nice character moment built within a fight scene that makes sense, where it's like he's desperate enough that he's willing to risk injuring himself to try and get that upper hand back.
Yeah.
So and I think that's something that we always have to consider is where is your character's mind, because that's going to lead into what mistakes or what not mistake, which I can't think of the damn word for that, they will make. So.
Yeah, you look at it like once they went for hand-to-hand combat, it became dirty.
Yeah,
like she straight up nut punches him,
right?
And like that would drop anyone normally. So it's the dynamics that you see in that scene kind of show how you can move and create the feeling of a larger fight space. Now, I think I saw
someone joined us. I just real quick when to acknowledge them.
So Sanj put on the subject of battle, how would you say you build the principles of the fight scene to a war? I've noticed a few stories here, World War II, that get technical really quickly.
I actually, okay, so this is not coming back to that book, actually. This is coming back to something I was reading that Sean's going to kill me for saying this. But, so I was recently reading and listening to the audiobook War of the Worlds, and that is one thing I noticed that really did distract me. It's like, I can recognize this book has a lot of beautiful writing within it, but what I'm here for is mostly the war itself, and the war was kind of like, that's happening.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. Is like, you have to, get lost in their research. I think that's a big part of it. You have to know, again, that comes back to, I think you have to know those mechanics and how it's going to work so that you can actually write it and visualize it yourself. But you also have to know, how is this going to make this character again contemplate?
Yeah. Well, and, to Sean's point, the writer gets lost in the research. So, when I'm writing, because I write fantasy, and so I'm using swords, daggers, bows, spears, those kinds of things, and magic is involved as well. You have to limit the amount of technical precision. If you're writing historical fiction, then the forms that they use, you're not going to say like, oh, and he was doing such and such a form. You describe that in the movements, and those people will understand what it is that how they're fighting. In terms of a war, when you have everything going on, the way that I think about building in a scene is that you have to realize that there is no clarity in war. Right. None. For those maybe above commanding everybody, maybe, but those who are down in the thick of it, those who are in the middle of it, they have no idea what the hell's going on. They can only see that which is in front of them. They can't see who's behind. They can't see who's on the sides. They can only see who's in front.
Right. That comes back to that POV. You don't expand, you focus.
Exactly.
You should be focusing in.
You zoom in on that POV, really dig into it. And then when you have them, if you're going to have a character in the middle of a war scene, you are describing the cacophony of sounds, not necessarily the weapons and the shields and the formations that they're going to be doing. That is going to become pre-fight. If you have somebody who's standing on the front lines and you're describing how the enemy is marching towards them, if it's for example, like a Viking culture, they're going to create a shield wall.
Right. And
so you can describe the shield wall moving forward, and you're just going, you have the character going like, WTF, like, how are we supposed to beat that? Like, the shield walls were nigh on impenetrable because they were so well done. The Romans with their, and this is where it's good to have some historical context. The Roman formation, Tortuga, it was the tortoise. They had shields on the sides, shields on top, shields at front and back. It was immovable, and they could just poke the swords out, and nobody could get to them.
I have to say this. Turtle. There, it's happening. Hey, I do.
So having that kind of stuff in the middle of the fight scene, you're going to have people jostling into each other. Someone's going to knock them down. Are they going to be able to get back up again? Are they going to be trampled to death? Those are the kinds of things they have to focus on. It should feel like chaos, not like it's been thoroughly planned out.
Right. Well, I think another thing is, setup, because you mentioned it, like the army marching towards you, or, maybe you're looking at this guy in the face before you're about to try and fight him. But I think another thing that we forget as authors is you can set up a few things before you get to that fight scene. Like the one that I sent you, about one chapter beforehand, I set up the terrain of that fight scene. I set up, here's what this looks like. Here's what they're dealing with. Here's their available weapons. Now, obviously, I didn't say, hey, they can use a disco ball on each other. But I did say, hey, there is this disco ball hanging there. Spoiler alert. Anyway, but yeah, I think that's another thing we forget as writers, is that you want to try and get that set up in there in a subtle way that allows the reader to remember those things and put them in when it's pertinent.
Yeah,
you used it right.
Yeah, because you don't want to try and describe everything in the middle of the fight scene because it slows the pace of the fight down a lot and it's not realistic.
Right.
When we're in a fight, we are thinking about the fight. We're not zooming back and going, that scope is very, very useful in the event we happened to be attacked by bloodsuckers. Yes. I'm definitely going to keep that on my notes for later. Oh, there's a fight happening.
Right, exactly.
And too often people get caught up in that. They get caught up in the world building in the middle of a fight scene.
Right. And that's not the time or place for it because those two have very different pacings.
Very, very different. And so if you can do a lot of that setup in the previous chapter, and then you can look at it and go, oh, okay, now we know what the placeholders are. We know what the environment can be used in. The example I gave for it was a client of mine. Mm-hmm. We were talking through the fight scenes, and she's said that she had been having some struggles with it. And I was like, okay, well, where does it take place? She's like, well, in a bank. I'm like, okay, so we have a bank. We have our big setting. What is in a bank? There's the stanchion poles. There's
counters, which are really hard.
The counters. You have the fake plants. You have pens, pencils, desks. And this was in a world where superheroes are, like everyone. And so, like, how does that add to the dynamic of the fight scene? Because if everybody has a super, what is going to be happening? How are they going to utilize these things? Are they picking up and throwing the plants? Are they flicking pencils at them and just like, what does it look like?
Well, I think that also comes out to, again, setting expectations. You want to set your character expectations as well then, right?
Yeah.
Like, early on, and I apologize, I keep talking about my novel. I'm not self-centered, I don't think, but
you're using it as an example.
But early on in the book, well before there's any battle scenes, I have my vampires, I don't mind spoiling a few of these things, doing things that require more strength than usual, doing things that require their abilities, one of which I will not spoil because it's a huge part of the book. Those little things that set up, this is what they're capable of, so that when you're reading that fight scene, it's not like magic. That's, I think, the worst thing you can do is suddenly my character knows how to use a gun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That brings me to another.
Even not magically, you need to set up those abilities and those expectations early on.
Yeah. And the other thing as an editor that I run into are the OP characters where they, so like I've had a client who their character was like 12 years old and they were just like a badass, like Krav Maga fighter. And
Percy Jackson meets Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What's that?
Percy Jackson meets Arnold Schwarzenegger, that kind of deal? Yeah,
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, don't worry about it. I kill you. Sure. Yeah. They fought two older boys.
Okay.
And just wrecked them and came out without a scratch.
See, I think that's one thing. And I think that's, I'm trying to say this in a way that's polite and delicate, but I'm not good at either of those. So, but I think one thing that we're also failing at as a writerly culture, if you want to call it that, is we don't often want to acknowledge that different people are going to have different capabilities and different, I'm just going to say it, disabilities when it comes to a fight. Like, I'm a flat say, my husband can pin me, period. Okay. I'm aware of this. Same thing with my uncles and just about every other guy I know, except for maybe one. They have more muscle than I do because I'm a wuss. But at the same time, like what you just said, two older boys, they're going to have more weight to them, more strength to them, more knowledge of how their body works. There's going to be all sorts of little advantages that they have. And there's 2 against 1. They're going to kick that kid's ass.
Yeah.
Unless that kid finds a different advantage, in another way. Like, oh, okay, I've got 2 older boys chasing me. I'm going to get up on this high thing and throw a box on their heads and knock one out. Whatever.
Right.
You have to find a new advantage for the other character.
Exactly. You have to take into account these different types of things. Boys and girls' bodies are built differently. And we have to just acknowledge this and go, okay, while some, like for me, like as people see, like I got noodle arms, like, you know, these are noodle arms. However, I am scrappy as hell and I am lanky. So if someone was coming at me, if I get behind them, they're in a rear naked chokehold and I will choke them the F out.
Right.
And because I know I'm not going to be able to take somebody on whose arms are the size of my thighs. Like it's not going to happen. But I know if I can get behind them, I can use speed and agility in short bursts. I ran 25 yards yesterday, and I needed an oxygen tank, so I'm not in great shape. But I know that if I can get behind them, and I'm not going to fight fair. Like I'm not going to stand toe to toe with somebody and take it because it's going to take one hit and it's going to drop me. I can fully accept this.
Right. I think also, and this kind of goes between inability versus disability, because I think I should have clarified that as well, because, you know, I'm not disabled, but I'm not able to do certain things that a bodybuilder can, and I can live with this. But at the same time, one thing I think that, oh shit, I had a really good thought and it's gone. I hate that.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that. It's gonna come back in the most inconvenient time frame. But I saw this comment from Heather Dewey Pettit. I apologize if I'm butchering your name, and it distracted me because it's a really good comment. So shiny.
Which one?
The very bottom one.
Bottom one? This one?
Yes, that one.
Certain disabilities would affect everything involved in the story. A fight scene, of course, is included. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to have people with different styles of fighting, different advantages and disadvantages.
Capabilities. Blah, blah, blah. Yep.
You know, it's one of those. So like in one of my favorite trilogies, the Song of Albion trilogy by Stephen R. Lawhead, the second book, The Silver Hand, is where I got my awesome username that I've been using for like 11 years. 2,
it's pretty badass. It is pretty badass.
Yeah. So, and in addition to that, the main character's POV is blinded throughout the like 3/4 of the book.
Right.
And they have moments where they can see with their inner eye kind of thing. But that is very few and far between.
Right.
But most of the time he is learning how to deal with his blindness.
Right.
And that comes with fighting, just moving around. It creates a different level. He doesn't get into an actual fight, but the way that he interacts with the world has drastically changed because he had a sword dragged across his eyeballs. So, you know, it's not so great. Lauren.
Yeah, I saw that. I now remember what I was about to say.
Yes.
Okay, so coming back to where you were talking about, you know, noodle arms and running and all that stuff. So as an example of something where I understand my capabilities, I understand what I can and can't do. Like when I walk across terrain that I'm not, like, I live in a small town. So if I walk across the parking lot here, I don't care. But when I go to a bigger town to, like, say, get groceries or whatever, and I'm not familiar with the area, or if I know it's a kind of seedy area, I will often, you know, walk across the parking lot with my keys between my fingers so that if someone does approach me, I can go and I have something to break across their face. I have also set it up so that I can easily do this and squash their nose, things that I frankly learned while writing fight scenes. I was like, that's a good self-defense idea. I should probably start doing that. Yeah. Because I do recognize that, like you said, someone goes to grapple with me, I'm doomed. But I do have the ability to level some of that playing field and give myself a different type of advantage that they may or may not expect.
So. Exactly. And it's we too often when we are creating our characters and they're getting into scrappy fight scenes, you have to take into consideration their background. Like if you don't know what their background is, you need to figure out what their background is. Right. You know, in the case of you know, when I was working with my client, I was telling them, I was like, this is unrealistic. And she just comes across as a Mary Sue. Now, I know the definition of a Mary Sue is someone who's like, everyone loves her. And I was like, I think the definition of Mary Sue has just changed in general. Ray broke Mary Sue, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And completely redefine what Mary
Disney in
Sue
general kind of reamped the whole Mary Sue thing.
Yeah. And so when you run into that, you see, and actually Mary Sue and Gary Sue play a lot into how people tend to write fight scenes, is because they want their character to come across as badass.
Right.
Nothing wrong with
that's when you don't struggle, though. I'm gonna put that out there as someone who did struggle with this exact problem.
Yeah, it's what you want to showcase. And this was something that I learned from listening to Writing Excuses, which, for those of you who don't know what Writing Excuses is, it's a podcast by Brandon Sanderson, Mary Robinette Kowal, Dan Wells, and Howard Taylor. Fantastic artists as authors, like just amazing. But what they were saying is that to avoid going Mary Sue, and this would then pertain to fight scenes, is that you make them competent fighters, not invincible fighters.
Right. Yeah, I can agree with that 100%.
Yeah, because that's where it creates the dynamic. You want to show that they are very good at what they do, but they also take hits. So, like, I wrote a fight scene between my male MC, the secondary MC, male MC, and a giant snake man, and they're fighting at night, and so they only have the light of a fire. They're working with that against them. Well, that's to their advantage, to the snake's disadvantage. Snake flanks them so that way he can kind of see them, and then attacks. Well, Udar trades blows with him. He gets a huge gash across his side, and he also trades off, and then the fight ends as quickly as that. And Jaden, who he's like me in terms of body frame, lanky, and he's got a stick, and he's just like, no, just whacking the snake on the head. He's not a competent fighter.
Bad.
Yeah, bad snake. But I showcase that as, I mean, Udar is like, and this is some, I guess, some spoilers for those who haven't read anything of my stories. He's like over 1,500 years old. So, I mean, he is extremely competent as a swordsman, and he still takes hits. He's not invincible. And so that is what you have to keep in mind, is that when you're going up against someone else, just because they are competent doesn't mean that they are going to be more competent than the other fighting style that the other person is competent in.
Right. I think another thing to consider, like you brought up the whole background thing. So one thing is, like you said, it's really, really easy to overpower your characters by mistake. Like my infamous first draft of Blood Herring, one of the things that I struggled one of the things that I struggled with was that when I first wrote Blood Herring, I've talked about this, I relate to Lily very easily. I think she actually started very much as a self-insert that I had to really correct. When you write a character that you relate to, it's really hard to put them in pain.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the other thing I struggle with is a comparison problem, which is that Gabe is my human character, and Gabe is thrust into this world with things that are stronger, faster, blah, blah, blah. It's like putting a kitten with a lion. Just no. So because Gabe is so underpowered, it made Lily come off overpowered already, which that took some work. Number one. Number two is, because I love Lily as much as I do, when I put her into a fight scene, yeah, I want her to kick ass. And the simple truth is, like, this isn't compelling to read, though. Like, there was 2 or 3 beta readers who said, I already know Lily can handle herself, so why is Gabe worried? I'm like, that's not how you should feel reading my book. I fucked up. Time to fix.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, when you're attached to your character, you have to remember that they're going to come off as a badass to the reader if they had to actually earn that victory, or if they had to walk away from a huge defeat and figure out how to come back and do it again.
Yeah.
They need their Rocky moment.
Exactly. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why so many people didn't, within the Star Wars community, didn't like Rey at the end of The Force Awakens is because she single-handedly beats a trained Sith warrior. And I've seen lots of explaining away of it, but I'm looking at it from an author's point of view, in that she did not earn that. She didn't. She literally does not get hurt or maimed in any way throughout the entire new trilogy.
Not only that, but you shouldn't have to explain to the audience to make it make sense. That's the part. Yeah. Like, I can understand that people will love something and they will try and find a way to make it make sense, because I've done that. I've done that for books and stories that I love, and I find this one flaw and I want it to work. So I'm not holding anything against those who do like the sequels. I do think they're trash, but if you like them, that's you. What I do hold against is when people say, well, you can explain. I'm like, yes, but you shouldn't have to. You should be able to watch this and go, okay, maybe the guy's overpowered, but it makes sense and I can follow it.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't just explain away, well, they wrote a book about it. So I'm not there to learn how, or to watch a movie and then go and be like, oh, I have to read a book to understand this. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
It's kind of like, for example, so there's one thing that I loved in writing it, but I said related to this tangentially. Basically, someone told me, and I love this, anyone should be able to pick up a sequel to your first book and still understand it. They should love it more if they read the first book, but they should still be able to pick up this book and understand, because this book is still its own story and needs to make sense on its own. Otherwise, you have not done your job.
Right.
So there can be plot holes and stuff like that left over because of book one, but it should still make practical sense on its own.
Yeah, exactly. And
yes. Again, she needed her Rocky moment.
Yeah, she shouldn't have won in the first movie. Well, and so to kind of, I know a lot of people are they work really hard to explain it away, because they want and
we want those Star Wars nostalgia feels that our grandparents and parents got to have. Let's be honest.
Totally.
We want that, because even the prequels did not give us that surge of like that our parents got when they saw Luke.
Exactly. It was a much different feel. Like I said, really the only good thing, in my opinion, that came out of it, specifically the first and the third one, were the duel with Darth Maul, and really the music added to that. That's what made it so great. And then the same thing between Anakin and Obi-Wan, because between the characters, we at least understood what was at stake.
Right. There's an emotional stake and there was a world stake. The emotional stake made you care. The world stake made it a little more interesting.
Exactly. And both of them were competent swordsmen.
Right.
And that was the thing. Like, I don't know if any of you guys watch Shadowversity, but he does a fight scene autopsy where he breaks it down. This guy's like a medieval enthusiast. Like, this dude is legit. I freaking love him. And he goes by and he tells you, like, this is actually properly choreographed swordplay.
Right.
He's like, it happens so fast that some of the movements are repetitive, but you can't really tell that because of how quickly they're doing it.
Well, again, I think there is something to be said for being repetitive in the right way, because again, you can create a rhythm, which I think is natural. Like, I actually attended one of my nephew's fighting classes. If my sister's still here, hi again. But he was learning karate, and there was this move. I don't remember the name of the move, which doesn't really matter, but it's basically where you're on your back, and if someone's straddling you, you would basically thrust your hips up to dislodge them. They will automatically brace themselves, and this creates an easy place for you to basically unbalance them and gain the upper hand. I ended up using that in my book a few times because now it's a move that my character knows. So you are going to go back to basics when you're fighting and trying to keep your damn life. You're not trying to make it interesting. You're trying to save yourself. It just shouldn't be so repetitive that your reader notices. That's the thing. It has to have that, like, okay, this makes practical sense, and I'm following along for the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Of bloodshed.
A good one. Lose the battle, win the war. Your protagonist can lose fights and still win in the end. And I feel that created more tension. Absolutely. Like, because every time they lose, it raises the overall stakes of the story.
And I think, let's see, I think it was Karen Diem made a good point earlier that they can win all of them. I don't know that they could win all of them, but I definitely agree they have to have some wins along the way. They can't lose everything, because then they just their win makes no practical sense. Like, you lost everything and suddenly when it matters you won. Yeah, I ain't believing that. if we're going back to Star Wars original here, Luke lost Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he destroyed the Death Star. He had wins and loses along the way that showed that, again, he was earning this victory. And that took time. Movie 2 also, when he's trying to get the thing out of the sludge, the ship out of the sludge, do or do not. He struggled a lot with that. There was always that balance back and forth.
Yeah. And I think to this point, if you're going to have or give them all of those little wins, it should be setting them up for a bigger fall, in my opinion, because they become overconfident.
Yeah.
Yep. And once they get to that point of overconfidence, that is when you can, come in and sucker punch them and really take the wind out of their sails, which creates that hero's journey. That was one of the reasons why the vast majority of Star Wars people that I know, and the seething rabid mob on Twitter, they hate Rey because she has no hero's journey. There is no, you start off and then you kind of go down and you have to find yourself and then you have to go back up.
There's a shallow one with the whole parent thing, but that's about it. All I've seen with her. There's a very shallow one.
Then they went and then flushed it down the proverbial tubes. And so like you have these things with the fights, that you can, not only can you create a hero that is overpowered, you can also create very sloppy fight scenes. Right. When you are purposefully making the enemy just dumb. Or
that's one thing we don't talk about with this whole thing is we talk about how Rey's overpowered and it's annoying, but really that also makes Kylo Ren, who in the beginning is your antagonist, it makes him less powerful, and therefore I don't give a crap because this doofus is ruling the universe and the universe is stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly. Because like they had set him up to become the next Vader. Like we all knew that based on the mask. That was the nostalgia. That was everything that they were going to do.
They played so much to nostalgia, but that's a whole nother topic.
They did. And for the first movie, I really didn't mind it. I was expecting them to do that. It was a giant Death Star, just planet size. I was like, okay.
Yeah, they were trying to basically get the fans back after the issues with the original series, and I respected that, but they worked so hard to rely on that nostalgia and not tell their own story.
They did. And it's like, because honestly, like, and this could be a whole nother topic, but Finn would have had a much better story arc than Rey. But that is besides the point. But to your point, when Rey single-handedly whoops Kylo Ren's ass, it completely undermines him throughout the rest of the movie, because we know that no matter what she does from that point on, she's going to beat him.
Yeah.
Anything that she can do, or she's proved that she can beat the strongest Sith. Yeah,
the strongest guy.
Yeah. And so it doesn't even come into play because they completely undermine themselves in the very first movie. And you can do that with your antagonist. This is something that I also notice is that when you're writing fight scenes, don't have it be the traditional one person attacking at a time if there's 8 people in a group.
Agreed. I mean, you can make that work, but you have to set up the right terrain for it. Like coming back, I know we keep using movies, but I think movies do a really good job of making it visually easy to understand. There's a certain oil fight scene in Transporter 1, I think it is. Yeah. That is infamous for the fact that it's really interesting and weird because basically this guy covers himself in oil, like motor oil in a garage.
Transporter.
Transport. So that when people are trying to grab him, they can't get hold of him. And on top of that, it makes the ground slick. So these people are actually trying to get to him and having trouble. Okay, you create an obstacle so that you even the playing field with all these people. Did you overpower him? Yes. But can I suspend my disbelief for it? Yes. Same thing with hallway fight scenes, or if you've got like a ravine that people are going down and you've got people up here that are archers. Okay, give me a reason to buy it. That's all I'm asking. I don't
Exactly.
expect you to write a perfectly good fight scene. Just give me an excuse to buy it without reading another book.
Exactly. Because like if you notice, like in a lot of the Jackie Chan movies, he is fighting multiple people at the same time. It's not just one-on-one. And when it is one-on-one, it's because he's removed one from the equation.
Right.
And so, and that was another thing that I talked to a client of mine about. They were like, okay, well, I have like 8 guys. They're going to attack this one, these 2 people. How are they going to fight them off? I'm like, you do that by having everybody attack at once. So it's utter chaos. And then you start breaking it out. You start isolating them because no one can fight 8 people at once.
Right.
So if you take out 2, you knock them to the ground and you head for stairs. Well, you could have people coming. You can maybe have 1 or 2 people coming from the top, 2 more from the bottom. The other 2 are still spread out somewhere else.
Right.
And you may not know where the other ones are. And so you're fighting, you break it up so you know who it is that you're fighting. And then you can take those in bite-sized chunks. So what that shows is your character's intelligence level, because they know this isn't going to work. So I need to separate them. And then once they've broken it out, then they can start fighting kind of on that one-on-one, and it makes it easier, and it still creates that dynamic. Okay, someone was, I see tags for days.
All right, well, you check that is officially 11, which means I'm allowed coffee. So I'll be right back.
Laura, to your point, yes, they absolutely ruined Finn. It was absolutely heartbreaking what they did with Finn, and they just had him running around screaming, "Hooray!" Yeah, that was awful. Okay. Heather, yes, I am on Facebook. You can search for the Editing Bard or SD Howard, and it should pop up. Oh, look at that. Adorkable already called it. Unless you were trained as a unit, multiple people cannot get to one person. We've tried it in kickboxing. Yeah. I mean, if you, and that's another thing too, actually, to Sean's point, or What Now's point earlier, is that if you're going to have somebody in a fight or in a war, but they've trained as a unit, then you are going to move as a unit. And so it's going to change. It's going to completely change the dynamic of what it is that you are looking to do and how you write that particular fight scene, because you're going to have people on either side of you who you know. And so you have to work that. You have to make it work. Do you guys have any questions about fight scenes that we may not have touched on already? I'm just curious. Oh, Miss Noble had to head out. Thanks for coming. It's a little late now, but thanks anyway. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Questions? Any questions? All right. As you guys are thinking about questions, I'll take a moment. A word from our sponsor. Sponsors me. So surprise, guys. For those of you who don't know, I am hosting a live stream where I'm going to be doing an Ask the Editors live stream. So I'm going to have 3 other editors from the group that I run on Facebook with me in 2 weeks, I believe. I believe it's 2 weeks. Yes, it's 2 weeks. And we're going to be answering questions. So if you guys have ever had questions for editors on developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading, I mean, really like how to improve your self-edits, how to save money, this is going to be the time where you can come join and ask those questions. There's a form down below. So down in the show notes, you can follow the form and you can submit your questions so that way we can answer it. It does, it's very simple stuff. You just fill it in and you're good to go. The second one is I'm going to be doing another open paragraph review. So if you want your paragraph reviewed, critiqued, getting suggestions for it, I know Lauren has already submitted hers because she is way ahead of the game. Then you can head down. That form is also down there. The form is basically so I can keep track of you all. because I had people on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter sending me stuff, which was fantastic.
Popular?
I know it was so much fun, but it was a pain to try and keep track of. So I just created a form, and so you just fill out the form, and then it allows me to track it, and allows me to tell you when you might actually where you would end up in the lineup for that. And then if you've never written fantasy before, if you're interested in writing fantasy, I've created an online writing course. The link is also down below. You can follow that. It's free. I'm pretty sure I posted the free link.
As your friend, I have to say something. I'm so proud of you. You advertised yourself while I was gone.
I've occupied. I didn't even have to break out singing either.
Oh, wow. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. It's the little things in life. But if you guys
I had to get for a latte, so I totally appreciate that you took that time and used it well. But I need my espresso, man. This keeps
I already
dying.
Pounded down all of my coffee.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to learn how to write fantasy, if you've never done it before, or like this is going to be something where if you've never written a story in your life, I walk you through the process of being able to do that. If you've never written fantasy before.
Oh, is this that group you were telling me about? I haven't looked at yet the link you sent me a little while ago. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm following.
And so it's like I want to say somewhere like an hour and a half worth of content. And it also, I actually have a bonus video that I created. I went through and I reshot everything because the first round, it didn't work well.
Oh, I hate when that happens. So side note, I will be reviewing this for the channel over on the Adorkable Author very soon, so you guys can get a little preview. I just have to find some free time and catch up on a few collaborations I got going here. Lauren, hint.
Yeah, but I was super excited to it. It was a lot of fun for me to create the course, and I included a video that shows you how to sketch out your own map for your world, which was a ton of fun because I'm a very visual person, so I've sketched out my map and the entire world, and I bought Wonderdraft to actually make it look realistic, which it was so much fun. I've nerded out on that probably more than I should have. But yeah, it's funny. So if you guys are
especially when it's your own business,
course link is also down below, and her channel also down below. Link in the channel. Go follow her if you don't already.
Come be careful with me.
But if you don't, go down and subscribe. Okay, people,
especially because I have a giveaway coming up very soon on my channel. So someone should definitely join that because the giveaway does come with some super awesome blood herring goodies that you can't see back there because yay glares, but you know what they are. They don't get to know what they are, but you know what they are.
They don't. I know what they are.
They're pretty badass, in my opinion. If I'm just going to be honest, they are pretty badass.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right.
Yes. And there's a free writing template. There's also a free writing template down there too. So it'll help you.
Also,
it will
help you get reviews
faster and get into a more consistent rhythm. I've been using this for over a year now. I finally figured out how to take the formula from my head and actually put it onto paper in a way that is remotely English and understandable. And I've used that for every one of my students who I've helped through the publisher that I've used.
Also, he does have, if he hasn't already talked about it, he does have this without the Harry Potter stickers, which is very, very, very useful.
Don't include Harry Potter stickers.
No, I get bored at work. Okay, we've talked about this. But yeah, so you guys should definitely check out this. I have a review for that. And he, as he puts it, he Jedi mind tricked me into plotting, and I am a hardcore pantser. So yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
A lot of really great tools on the site, people.
And so it used to be where you sign up for newsletter information and stuff, and you get the worksheets. I've changed that. So you actually get the entire set of worksheets. There's 6 when you join the course. You get all of them. So not just the first 3, but also the plot donut, which was probably my favorite one to write. Anyway, I was hungry and I wanted to write
sprinkles,
lots of sprinkles. And then ones about how to just write, because people use that. The authors just throw that around, and it's unbelievably annoying because it is not helpful in the slightest. And so I actually take that, turn it on its head, and give it to you as something that is going to be useful. and also breaking through the wall of writer's block, which is awesome. So that is all of my self-promotion and word from the sponsors. Thank you guys for listening to my ramblings and rants. Now to the comments. Heather, I'm writing my first book. I've written a lot of nonfiction, but this is my first complete fiction piece since high school.
Ooh.
Very cool.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I've helped quite a few students with nonfiction books. I have a client right now who's doing nonfiction. Fiction is my first love. I specialize in fantasy, so I just absolutely love fantasy. I grew up on Tolkien. I mean, I don't think you guys can see it, but starting here, this little corner, this whole shelf is just nothing but Tolkien, everything.
Which is funny because you and I are coming at this from fantasy writer perspective. At the same time, I am a urban fantasy. Now, I don't do medieval fantasy all that well. I talked about this earlier in the stream for those just joining. Medieval fantasy and I just don't mesh. It doesn't hit my brain right. I can't submerge myself in the world. But urban fantasy, that's my jam.
Yeah, one of my clients did urban fantasy, and it was actually a lot of fun because that's not the style that I will typically pick up and read. Because like most of mine, like the one that
you're gonna pick up mine though, right?
Duh.
Okay, so long as we're clear.
I just finished this one.
Okay. Ooh, I like the little Viking shield there. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes place in Ireland. But it's
okay, so not Viking. Okay.
Yeah, it's Celtic fantasy. Well, there are Vikings in it, technically.
Yeah, it's just the angle may look like a Viking shield, but that's okay. But then I saw Celtic, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Third person omniscient, which is not my favorite.
Yeah.
Only because it's really hard to do and pull off well. And he does pull it off, but there's also some POV changes that were an interesting style choice that I probably would have dissuaded other people from doing.
Hey, doll. Sorry, gotta acknowledge doll. She's
doll. Hey, doll.
But yeah, no. I think I definitely agree with you that, especially when it comes to fight scenes, I cannot write third person at all.
Don, if it's showing $49, then I did not grab the right link. I apologize. Because right now I have opened it up because everybody has kind of a lot to do, or not a lot to do right now.
We need something to do.
Yeah, we need something to do. So I'll update that link at the end of the video, so the appropriate one will be there, because I've made it free for the first 1,000 people who join it. So after
good catch, Don.
It's 49. Yes, I appreciate that. I thought I grabbed the right one. Yeah,
dude, it happens.
Fix.
Yes, doll, I'm right there with you. That is my preference. I am actually in the middle of reading a Kevin Hearn novel, and I'm very, very happy. So,
yes, Celtic fantasy. Stephen R. Lawhead, fantastic.
The nihilist is here.
Author. He also has a Robin Hood retelling, which is amazing. By the time I finished with the Robin Hood, it was called the King Raven trilogy. By the time I was done with that, I wanted to march myself out into the woods, cut down a tree, and make my own bow. Like, I was ready to do that. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it will happen. It didn't, but I wanted to.
That is kind of a good book that makes you just want to try something that is impractical beyond all belief, right?
Yeah, he's got an author, King Arthur series, the Pendragon cycle, and then the Song of Albion trilogy, which is just absolutely amazing.
Okay, since we're shouting out books, give me 1 second.
Yeah, Lauren, I write third person limited as well. That is my preferred choice. Don, thank you. I appreciate that so much. It goes to pay the bills.
Yep. So, speaking of urban fantasy, that is one of the best books I've read all year. This is actually the one that, again, for those who are just joining, this book was so good that when the author said I should pick up this book, I took her advice right away. So I don't like this one, but this one's damn good. Caro knows what she's doing.
Queen of Swords and Silence?
Yes.
Nice.
So, yeah, she did an amazing job because it's actually told from the perspective of a Valkyrie.
Oh.
So it's something very unique where, normally you get, I'm not going to trash myself when I say this, but normally you get vampires and stuff like that. It's like Valkyries are not something that's explored very often. And on top of that, it's a Valkyrie with a interesting taste. I'll leave it there. All right.
Geek mentions hard to write first person. It is very hard to write first person and do it well. I prefer first person past tense as just my personal preference. The past tense is a little bit easier to write from a first person perspective. Stephen R. Lawhead's trilogy, The Song of Albion, is actually written in first person past tense, and it's done very, very well. First person present tense is much harder to do as a whole. I've not seen it done well in a lot of cases. As an editor.
Just want to clarify something that Lauren just brought up. That is not a YA book by any means stretch of the imagination. Just want to say that real quick. Because she brought up a title saying every fantasy YA title ever blank of blank and blank. Yeah, don't give this to your kids. They'll have nightmares. I had nightmares, but I'm okay with that. I'm a grown-ass woman. I can give myself nightmares. Coming back to what you're... Oh, good.
Sorry, just answering Dal's question. It is a writing course that I created online. It's part of the Bard's Storytelling Academy. I'm going to be doing more webinars where I talk. I have one for book writing basics, science fiction, romance, self-edits, building an author platform, and weaving faith in writing together. So super excited to do those. Those will be courses I'll be adding over time. But the first 1,000 people have availability to my start your fantasy novel course for free. I've made it available for the first 1,000. And after that, it's $49. Unless you just want to pay, then you just go and you can do that.
If you just want to be supportive, you go for it.
Yeah. If you want to help feed me, I'm not going to complain about that. It helps with my coffee addiction. It helps get me snacks. I can't.
Everyone needs their Corona snacks right now. Everyone does.
Yeah, I've eaten everything. I'm like a goat. I've just grazed. The only thing
my suggestion is popcorn, because you have to actually work to make popcorn.
This is all that's left, and I hate this.
You could send that over here. Gosh, no. But okay, so I'm seeing a couple things about first person, and I realize we're kind of slightly off topic here, but whatever. We'll get back there eventually. On topic. Yeah, not about I will finish this real quick. The first person past present tense is definitely difficult to write. I slip into past tense way too easily, so I agree. It's very difficult. Okay, now back to topic.
Okay.
Theoretically. I'm very good at encouraging people to ramble, so if he rambles, or if he rambles, I'll point the direction. It's totally my fault, I swear.
To Lauren's point, first person present tense is hard because you can fall into telling instead of showing very, very easily. And that's usually what I've seen. That, or you get so inside the character's head that it falls into what I call the echo chamber, where everything else around them just seems to disappear. And then you're left going, like that John Travolta gif that everyone uses. He's got the... it's what it feels like sometimes when I'm reading. Sci-fi, self-edits. Sci-fi and fantasy are my two specialties. I mean, I have one whole shelf dedicated to Tolkien. I have one whole shelf dedicated to Frank Herbert. I have another one that has just a crap ton of Orson Scott Card, H.G. Wells, all the...
Just an audiobook in connoisseur. Yes, I didn't mispronounce that on purpose. I did pull a brand on purpose. But anyway... So I think I've got 20 different audiobooks on this poor thing. And my shelf is... Most of my books that are actually on that shelf are Authortube books that I was like, I'll review that. I'll review that. I've got 2 urban fantasy books on that shelf. 2. Well, unless you count Harry Potter's urban fantasy, then I've got those. But those are my husband's. So. Very popular.
Yeah, you can probably do that.
Yep. All right. Someone made a really good point. In first person, you can cheat at fight scenes, though. Actually, I would love to hear what you mean by that, Nihilist, because I actually found writing first person fight scenes very difficult, and I mentioned this earlier in the stream. My main character started as a self-insert, so I had a really hard time putting her in the struggles and the painful situations I needed her to, and then the other character, I was lucky enough, he's a human facing vampire, so he kind of had to be beaten to shit. So I actually find it very easy to cheat because I want my darlings to do well. So I would love to hear what you mean by cheat. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I'm also very curious on that.
Yeah, if you have found a cheat, I would love that cheat.
Yeah,
send me sums. But I think also Karen made a really good point earlier. You can segue into POV differences in action fight scenes. I think we talked about that a little earlier, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing to come back around to, since we've gained a few people.
Yeah.
So
where was I don't even know where that was. I can't find
that was about
wait, there it is.
3 up. Yeah, there you go. I mean, really, I think when it comes to POV, it's just focus.
Yeah,
it's,
don't change.
What did they say in the Karate Kid, the reboot? Your focus needs more focus. Don't start swapping around in heads.
Yeah, don't jump heads in the middle of a fight scene. It's
they're naturally chaotic. They don't need more chaos.
Yeah, honestly, like I tend to steer people away from switching POVs in general mid chapter because it's done so poorly so often.
It's also really hard for the reader to keep following. I think even if you do it well, I've had books that have done it well, and I'm like, I was over here and now I'm over here. It's kind of like being stuck in an elevator you didn't realize you were in.
Yeah.
What floor am I on?
Yeah. All right. So Geek says you can cheat because you can focus on one character and their perception of a scene, maybe use their own terminology and only their point of view and ignore the rest of the participants.
I will agree. You could. It does make it easier to make sure you don't head swap. So I will agree that if you're in first person, it's gonna have that. Oh, bye, Laura, or bye, Laura. I almost said Lauren. Oops.
I mean, I don't see that necessarily as a cheat because I do the same thing in third person limited, where I'm in the character's head enough to be able to flesh out the terminology, and I'm not actually in large cases I'm not using terminology because that's when you can fall down the rabbit hole. It can
become a technical how-to manual instead of a fight scene.
And then I assumed the praying mantis. It's like
I am imagining Kung Fu Panda right now.
I would be Poe. I would absolutely be Poe. Uncoordinated.
I'm definitely Poe when I go up and down the stairs. There's days where I have to like kind of dog crawl up the stairs because I'm just too dang lazy at that point.
Yeah. Okay, so Geek said I was reading Swan Song by Roger McCammon last summer, and he was excellent at head hopping. Yeah. Some people can pull it off. It's a style preference for me. It drives me nuts.
I'm not a big fan of it when I'm reading. I mean, granted, when I read, I prefer first person just because it makes it easier for me to just break that wall down, especially because I do like audiobooks so much.
Right.
But even reading let's see here, like this one that I propped up is first person. Alethea is another one I talked about recently, which funny enough is present tense and was still very well done. But it was again first person, so I really like that particular point of view. I think it works well. I don't like being around in other people's heads because to me it just gives me too much information. I like experiencing it the way the characters do.
Yeah. All right. So Lauren says, when writing fight scenes with magic, how do you make it clear what is happening when it's fantastical and not grounded in the reality to the readers?
That's going to you because I don't have magic in my book. Vampires, no magic.
That is a good question. So the way that I use magic in my book is all the magic has a consequence to it in some way, shape, or form. The magic that Udar uses, and Udar is the main MC, one of them, it is distinguished by a white flame. So I build into the reader's head what that person's magical ability is. So when it's used, they already have a reference for it. So I'm not having to constantly repeat myself. There's strategic times where you do need to do that. But for instance, like Udar will his eyes when he goes to fight these shadow creatures, his eyes become white with flame, and the flame travels down the length of his sword, and it becomes an extension of himself. And that is the power that he goes through, and he fights off the creatures. When the power is gone, he will feel maybe a little bit exhausted. Whereas it's very different for the female MC, because I have no problem spoiling this because it seems to be of interest to everybody when I tell them, is that her gifting is to be able to create a perfect replica of herself.
Ooh, okay.
To the point where the clone does not know it's a clone; it thinks it's the original.
Okay.
The only telltale sign of that is a marking behind the ear. But since they can't see it, they don't know.
Right, they're not sitting there. Am I the right one?
Yeah, exactly. And they think that they're the original. Right. And so when you have this, she feels like she's losing a part of herself because when she casts it, when she does that, it's usually as a meat shield to protect somebody or to fight somebody. And so it creates a very interesting dynamic. I have others who are shapeshifters. That's their magical ability. Right. And so I set the precedent that they can transform into any creature. They really have no limitations in that. They can transform into horrifying creatures, or they can transform into a bird. Like it's a wide range. You just have to set the rules for each type, what they're using, and how you describe it. Ash, if he's still, if they're still on, during the review process for their first opening paragraph, talked about the fire spreading up their arm, and it sets this precedence that the person can control.
Oh yeah, I do remember that from your
fire. And so that when they use that ability, when you say, and a gout of fire burst from their hand, you've already set the precedent that they can control that. Right. So it's all about kind of creating a very loose set of rules.
It's kind of like foreshadowing, really, if you think.
Yeah,
because that's one thing. So actually, while you were talking, I grabbed a stack of. If I'm interrupting you, tell me to shut up.
No.
Okay. So I grabbed a stack here. So obviously, I've got the one urban fantasy that I do have here, which I don't think is even ours. I think it's a friend's. Anyway, and I've got these two guys here. The one thing I can say about every single one of these that I really, really enjoyed, because they do have magic fights in them, is this one. She uses and talks to her sword. Yes, her sword talks well before any battles where it's of consequence. So that's set up. I'm aware of that. And there's other magic aspects I don't want to spoil, but again, they're set up ahead of time in mundane ways so that I am aware of them as a reader when it gets to the important stuff. This one has several demons that also, again, do a lot of magical weird crap that they display on page well before it's important. But it sets it up. And then same thing with this one. I think at one point he turns into an animal to break into his own office. So now when he uses that power in the middle of a battle, I'm aware he can do that. I know I'm kind of, kicking a dead horse here, but that I think is one of the biggest aspects with magic, is that if you're going to use it, don't wait until the fight scene. Make sure you're using it, because people don't just use a tool when they're trying not to die. They use it whenever it's useful.
Right. And to Karen's point is you be consistent with the magic. You have to be consistent. That's part of the world building. And if you're not consistent with the world building, everything else is going to slowly start to fall apart.
Right. That is actually one thing I'm bumping into with book 2, is that I hit a snag where I have to figure out a way to make something make sense, because otherwise it's a giant loop and a giant plot hole because of the system I've built. So
yeah. And so to Lauren's point, I have a character who isn't aware he has magic until a major conflict, and I've been having trouble writing those breadcrumbs without giving it away. It is tricky when you are setting up someone who isn't magical, or who has magic but it has the appearance of not being magical,
is unaware of it.
Yeah. And so the way that you do that is, are they better at certain things than others? Do things just kind of happen? And if they just kind of happen, you can play off of that when you have the reveal. Now, when it comes to a reveal that someone has a magical ability, and if it's in a fight scene, then what you are doing is essentially saying that the stress, the pressure that you have put them under has unlocked that to its full capability. And it is a hard thing to write, because you are having so many things happen at the same time. you're having a potential fight scene, which is going to have a lot of action. It's going to be very action packed. But if you also are revealing the magic at the same time, you're almost doing yourself a disservice in a way, because the character is going to be focusing on that of like, holy crap, did fire just burst from my hands, or did lasers shoot from my eyes? Like, what is happening? And so you're having to call into question and explore that just before the fight scene or during the fight scene. So if you can kind of set it up to where they realize that they have magical abilities, they don't know the extent of them, and then you insert the conflict where they're just like, they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. They're shooting fireballs and icicles, and they're just like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, whoopsie. That could be one way to introduce a magical ability without having to do that simultaneously in a fight, because it is going to be difficult.
I think another thing to add to that, if I may, is if you're going, and if you already made this point, I apologize, my headset died like 3 times just now while you were talking, so it was like, Howard, no Howard, Howard, no Howard. I'm like, fuck. Anyway, so one thing I think to add to that is, I don't think it's necessarily bad if your readers are understanding it, as long as it's still subtle. Like, to me, because here's the thing. Number one, if it's subtle, your reader is going to suspect it until you flat out say it.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part of that is, once you enter that big battle royale of sorts, and you're in that final conflict, they're not thinking about those subtle clues that you set up that they've been suspecting all along. They're thinking about, holy shit, he's about to get stabbed. So then when you hit them with that thing again, you've set up those clues. They're suspecting it, so that's foreshadowed. And it's like, oh, yes, I was right, or oh shit, that's what that was about. It becomes that aha moment for them in one way or another. So long as, again, if your character doesn't get it, your character can be an idiot. That's what human beings do. We're unaware of ourselves. So I think your reader can understand it without being a problem.
Yeah, and the finesse that comes with that is understanding the 2 different types of reveals that are most commonly used. The first one is you reveal it before the conflict, and it's like, ooh, shiny, this is so cool. There's the foreshadowing that is used to let the reader know that this person has a magical ability, even if the character does not. It is slightly harder to do that because you don't want to make the character seem like a complete dolt the entire time.
Right. I think that's one thing. I know that there's a love and hate with Harry Potter and the writing community sometimes, but one thing I have to say, because I did read the first Harry Potter like everyone else did when it originally came out, and I have to say that, yeah, they set up that first little prologue, first chapter, and made it very clear there's magic in this book. And then they go right into Harry's POV, and I totally forgot about it in reading about Harry's day-to-day life, so that when all of a sudden they go, by the way, you're a wizard, I was like, oh, that makes total impractical sense, and I feel stupid for not, flat out thinking that when he's sitting here describing how he's gotten away from his cousin, how he made the glass disappear, blah, 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 blah. It was not by any means subtle, and again, I was like, 9 when that book came out, I think?
Right.
But still, I think there's something to be said for, again, just setting up something early on, and then distract the hell out of your reader with, the emotional plot of the story or the characters. Because that's what they're there for anyway, for the most part.
Yeah, very true. Heather says, my MC has magical ability, but it slowly grows, and she doesn't know it at first either. She needs to do the mental work first. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And especially, when talking in particular about fight scenes, like one of the things that I notice is that, you have the people who, again, they create an OP character thinking that because they're going to make it so cool and shiny and like, wow, this is amazing, they can do so many things. And then they defeat somebody that is obviously way more powerful than them. It pushes that boundary of suspension of disbelief to a point where I was like, I can't quite let that one go. And it can pull the reader out of the story rather than pulling them in, versus in this case, if they're slowly growing into their power, then they're not going to be able to take on somebody who has a stronger magical ability because they have not done the work. You've set the rule, you set the parameter. In order to use the magic, they have to do the work.
Right.
And so you have to be consistent with that. And if you're consistent with it, the readers aren't going to care whether the person's if they will care if it's super OP. Right. But if you can show that they're competent in a certain level of that magic, then they can fudge it, and maybe they use different and unique ways to do it. If they can create if they can create water, but they can't freeze it, they can't weaponize it, they have people chasing after them, maybe they just they hit the ground and the water spills out and creates mud and the people start slipping through it. So it's not a direct attack, it's an indirect way of using their power to overcome some sort of adversity because they're using it in a way that they know how to do in that moment.
Right. They're being instinctual with something they understand.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, you're never going to pick up a gun and immediately know how to use it. Yeah, you can understand there's a trigger, but aiming and loading and all those other things, those are completely different than is. I think there's also something they said, though, use your character's flaws when you're fighting. Like one thing I'd forgotten, and this is something you have not seen this particular fight scene, but there was one fight scene that I had to have Gabe come in and essentially pull Lily out of the fire, so to speak. I'm being very metaphorical there because I don't want to give it away, but I had to have him come in and save her. And this was the fight scene that many betators said, why does Gabe need to help her? She's very capable. I'm like, okay, that's not how she should be. She needs to, not be that way. I realized the reason that was happening is because one of Lily's main character flaws is that she's almost 200 years old. She thinks she knows everything. She's very overconfident in herself on occasion when it comes to being able to take care of herself and be able to get through the day. And so I was like, okay, she needs to be overconfident, but she also has to be wrong about that. She has to get her ass handed to her a couple times. And once I redid that, it was like, okay, now these stakes are much higher. And this character flaw is impacting her in a very real and very visceral negative way. So.
Yeah. And your characters have to have flaws if they want. And I mean, that in of itself could be an entirely different stream, just talking about that.
Oh God, yes.
But you need to have character flaws for your characters. That does not mean they are fatal flaws. It just means that
could be near fatal, though. Makes the fight interesting.
It can most definitely. But if you're using, to your point, the overconfidence, that is something that everybody can relate to.
Right.
Udar, when he's fighting, what he tends to do is he tends to judge people first. And this is because he's become very callous over his 1,500 years. And there are very good reasons why he's become that way. But when it comes to interacting with people, he tends to misjudge them or predetermine who they are based on, so there's different races.
Why do I get the feeling that Udar and Gabe could have coffee?
They probably could. That would be an amazing.
I apologize. I could not resist that. Anyway, continue.
That would be amazing because Udar hates angsty teens with a fiery passion. And I've thrown him into the mix of, he hates everybody younger than him because he's just old and grumpy. And he's got, like a young 30s, like sassy assassin, someone in her mid 20s who just pesters the bejesus out of him because she knows him. And then there's Jaden, who is just a twerp, and Trinia, who is just like trying not to get caught and die. But there's so much angst. Okay, I see.
I do like this comment from Doll here. The bottom two.
Bottom one.
Well, the bottom two, because the first one relates in the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. I can relate to this. You know that very well. Because my main character. The reason I said that about the coffee is because Gabe's biggest flaw, not his only, but his biggest flaw by far, is that he's very prejudiced, and it's not without reason. It's unjust, but it's not without reason. Without giving away too much here, but yeah, that does kind of hurt him on a couple areas, because like there's times where he is operating in an area where he is the weakling. He's a mouse among lions. And he can't accept that, though. He's very prideful. He's like, I am better than you because I'm better than you, and that's just that. And
because reasons.
And that gets him into trouble, that puts him into a worse and worse scenario the more the book continues. So yeah, I think again, your character's flaws should totally fuck them over in almost every aspect of your book, especially when it comes to life or death situations. That should be a problem, unless their problem is they're a shopaholic, because I don't see someone going for a Prada when their butt's getting kicked. But beyond that, your flaws should have an impact.
Using high heels as nunchucks.
I haven't done nunchucks, but I will be honest, someone did, without getting into too much detail, someone was a total jerk to me once in high school, and I did whack him over the head with the heel of my shoe. I didn't get the shoe back, but they didn't come near me ever again, so it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense. In 10 words or less, what now? You have missed a lot. Things and stuff. There was Star Wars references, to Rey being Mary Sue, and the horrible fight scenes that have happened in that. Well,
that's the thing is, I think those stories. So getting back on that tangent mildly, those stories would have been more forgivable probably had she had to struggle.
Yeah.
Everything else, it's like, okay, they had a lot of really good setup. I mean, freaking Han Solo, are you kidding me? You know, we talked about shock for shock's value, but there was some good setup that could have been done with that, and they fucked it up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That was that gets into my, if you guys want to watch my salty rant about The Last Jedi, I have that on my channel under the cringeworthy reviews.
I was gonna say, what do you call those? Cringeworthy. That's right.
Cringeworthy writing.
These thumbnails are fantastic.
Yeah, that one.
I can't even get the angst in there. It's too perfect.
The pure rage that I feel just at the thought of everything that is The Last Jedi went into that. And I mean, the straw that broke the camel's back was that god awful Robin Hood remake from 2018. That was my very first cringeworthy review, and
I haven't seen the movie, so
it hurt my soul on a level where I felt personally violated. Aww. It broke something inside of me, and thus cringeworthy was born. Yeah.
I think there is something to say though. So I've read bad books that are just plain bad. Like, you already know I'm in the middle of one that I've already planned out the opening line for the review, and it's going to be, oh my god, is that like Egyptian clothing? Because this guy does this in the middle of a freaking fight scene. I'm like, why are you analyzing what this thing's wearing? He's tearing your throat out, you moron. Point being is, like, that book is so, and I'm not trying to be a total jerk here, that book is so bad that I'm willing to forgive how bad it is. But when you have a story that has good elements, again, like Star Wars or like many other books that you read, and there's this little kernel of something really, really, really good there, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Because this actually had all the makings to be good. You just had to line those elements up in the right places. And granted, that's going to be personal preferences. I grant that. But I think that's much more annoying when the book has the potential and it gets lost.
Firefly. Ooh. Now we're talking. That is what I'm talking about. Yes. All of that.
All this all day.
Yeah, all of the Firefly. I freaking love that.
Yeah, her madness was very well built in there, where she can't communicate, so she's dealing with the fact that she can't communicate properly. Yeah, like I can't remember her damn name right now. This is sad. Fuck. I can't remember the girl's name. This is so sad. But anyway, but yeah, no, that character was really well built. Beautiful. River, thank you. Was very well built. Tragic. And she could kick some serious ass, but it was very, very sad for the reasoning she could.
Yeah, exactly.
It added a lot of depth.
It did. And then when she goes, like, if in the movie Serenity, like, you watch her take on a horde of reavers.
My turn now.
that moment,
line broke my heart. My turn now broke my damn heart.
Yeah. If you want feels like that, and that is where it comes to good characters. And that's actually the place to Sean's point earlier in the stream about POV, is that if you can get the reader invested in the character with all their flaws, with everything that they are, when it gets to that, you've earned the right for those kinds of moments where you can showcase how badass they are, and it's sad and it's tragic. Like there are times where like I think of like Aragorn, right? In the very first movie, he goes up against an entire cohort of Uruk-hai by himself, and you know that he is an expert swordsman, but you're like, this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where he walks out and he brings his sword up, and you're like, oh.
Did you fanboy a little just now?
Oh, so hard. I fanboyed. Yes. Yeah. I have no problem fanboying over that.
Don't worry. It's absolutely adorable. No, I can definitely agree with that.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. Leaf on the Wind. That moment, that pissed me off so bad. I felt it pierced my heart as well. And a little part of me died.
I'll admit, I like fantasy movies. I can get into those a lot easier than I can fantasy, but as in medieval fantasy again. I don't know if people call it high fantasy. I hear that term thrown around a lot, but medieval fantasy is what I call it, and it's just like whoosh for me for some reason.
See,
which is fine because I keep getting requests to review it.
Yeah, and for me, like I'm a huge lover of history, and so especially ancient history, Celtic, Gaelic, ancient Rome, Egypt, Greece, all of that. And so a lot of what and especially medieval history. And so much of what my background plays into how and what I write more often than not.
And, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I didn't write a vampire novel for funsies. Yes, I did. I wrote a vampire novel because I've loved vampires for a very long time. And I've talked about this and other things. Part of it was actually a brief fascination with the Irish famines. That is where Lily came from, was me sitting there one day and I'm reading a vampire novel and I just learned about the Irish famines in history class. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, if there was actually vampires, I would actually be able to sit down and talk to someone who experienced this shit. That sounds horrific and fascinating all at the same time to me, because it's like, I feel bad that person had to suffer, but I can't deny the perspective would be interesting. I can't deny that. So yeah, definitely. Not by fame. I think Merlin singing Country Roads in Kingsman. The Golden Circle. I have very little idea what you're talking about right here, but the imagery is very, very beautiful.
I know the movie, but I have no context for it because I haven't seen it. I'm assuming it's the movie.
Right.
Because I know that the Kingsmen have done it and they're coming out with another The King's Man, which is the origin story, because Hollywood is completely bereft of any originality or talent now.
I don't mind that they're bereft of originality, but it's like, dude, there's so many other books out there you could have adapted by now. You could have like I'm sorry, but like I've reviewed at least 3 books on my channel that it's like I would love to see you try and adapt this. I realize it would not be the book. I can accept that. That's one thing, is like I think we always get into this, the book is better. I'm like, no, the book is more detailed. That doesn't mean it's not naturally better. It's a completely different medium that has to experiment with completely different tools. But there are sometimes I watch a movie and I'm like, I really need to read this book now. In fact, I usually prefer to see the movie first, then read the book, because I don't care if I'm spoiled. I just don't want those little details, like the emotions. I don't want those spoiled. That's what I care about, because you can't get that from a movie. Again, don't care if we over on time, and that's all up to you, Mr. in charge of everything. But since we are getting close, if you want to pull up my great, I gave you power. If you want to pull up my scene, you're welcome to, because we did promise it like at the beginning.
Yes, we did, and that is definitely something that we are going to do.
So just want to offer that real quick.
Where is it? Yeah,
and I am totally willing to have people tell me what they think of this in the rawest form. You are welcome to criticize me. Howard can attest, I take criticism very well, and then I go crying to my friends about it, but that's okay.
I didn't even criticize. I freaking built it up, and I completely like,
no, I wasn't even talking
mentally
about that.
juked you because you had no idea. You were just sitting there like I could feel the sweat dripping down your forehead as I was typing yesterday.
While you do what you're doing, I'm gonna give them context for that because they have no idea what you just mentioned. All right, so for those who don't know, I just got my book cover finalized through Nicole McEwen, who's also an authortuber. And we just finished coming up with it yesterday, and a couple days ago I posted on a group and I asked for criticism. I'm not giving anyone in that group shit. I asked for their opinions, they gave them to me, that's all. But they were harsh, and there was a couple of times where I was like, I've made the worst mistake of my life. And I literally went to probably 4 different people that don't even live in my house going, I feel confident in my cover one day, and then the next day I feel like shit, and then the next day I feel great again, and the next day I feel like I am never gonna sell a copy of this book. And he's like, as your friend, these people can go fly a kite. It's just their opinion. Blah blah blah. I'm nicing it up for his sake.
I believe the term that I used is that they can stay in the room and sniff their own farts.
That's fair, but you didn't see what they actually said, so I'm assuming that you were being harsh because you didn't realize what they actually said. And most of them were not being jerks. Most of them were just being critical, and I appreciate critical feedback because I can always ignore it. So that's why I niced it up, is because I don't know if you realize what they said. Most of them were not being jerks, except for one person. One person was kind of a jerk. Anyway, but after that, he's like, that's my opinion as your friend. As an editor... And then it was those damn blinking dots for 5 fucking minutes, and it was killing me. And I was like, okay, his professional opinion. I value this. I value this. I will sit and I will read this calmly, and I will be patient, and I will understand that he's just being a good friend. And I'm like amping myself up. And it's this wall of, here's why I think your book cover works. I'm like, my uncle thought I lost my damn mind, which is not unheard of in this household, but it was so fucking hysterical.
Yeah, because then it was just like there was just silence on the other line, and I was like, I broke her.
You did break. You and Sean both rescued me. Lauren also had to talk me off a cliff once. Like I've had way too many of you, Lisa, including Nicole. There's a huge smudge on my glasses. Squirrel. But I've had way too many people talking me off a emotional cliff with that book cover the last couple days. It's terrible.
It's understandable.
It's a huge decision. I think that's something, probably should do a whole nother stream just about that. It's like there are so many little decisions that it's so hard to know if you're making the right call, and it's so like feedback's valuable, but you at some point you got to make a choice, right? Because you can't please everyone. You just can't.
Exactly. And I agree that it is like a whole stream in and of itself. But like I have an entirely different bone to pick with half of the writing groups on Facebook. I could rant about them as hard as I did on pretty much all of my cringeworthy reviews, because every time I post in it, it's just the emotional intelligence of pine cones is what is usually responded with. Like it's insane. But I won't go that route.
Pine cones.
Pine cones, I leave you can just throw at somebody. You can't throw people. It's very difficult. I've tried.
You keep doing what you're doing. 1 second.
Yes, Lauren, to your point, yes, mythology, legends, folklore are, well, I mean, Heather was agreeing with you, but yes, I love that. If you guys are lacking inspiration, like freaking look at that stuff and you will find something. I guarantee it.
Well, especially you don't always have to create something new. I think that's the biggest problem as a writer is we always think we have to make something new. You do not need to make something new. Everything has probably been done. And if you come up with that one weird idea, congrats. But like, okay. Again, I'm sorry, I like props. Valkyries are nothing new. Someone simply took the idea and went a different direction with it. That's all you have to do is find a direction someone hasn't explored. Ask yourself, what if?
Yep, exactly. I posted in the chat, the Myths and Legends podcast is an absolutely fantastic podcast. If you want to listen to this guy, basically does research on different myths, and then he kind of creates a skit out of it and retells it.
Right. It's
awesome. If you want ideas, that is definitely the place to go. Let's see. So another mini. Where'd it go? Okay. There are many cover designers in that group. looking for potential gigs. Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking for gigs right now. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
I have to say, no one was trying to usurp Nicole in that one whole thing. It's just, I think the thing is that my cover, I had to make some weird decisions because my book's a blend of 3 different genres. And it's really hard to figure out where you pinpoint genre expectation versus standing apart in the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is it's like, okay, how do I explain what this book is in one cover? That's already a pain in the ass. Let's be completely honest here. Sorry, my glasses being crooked noise me. And then on top of that, you take the idea of, not only explaining your whole book, but then on top of that, how do you attract that crowd? And it's like, yes, I could have, Sean's gonna kill me, a black and swirly cover like everyone else, but then it's going to be like everyone else.
Exactly.
There's always going to be those challenges. So I don't think those people were trying in any way, shape, or form to hurt my feelings. Again, except for one. One was an asshole, and that person can go fuck off. I'm not going to say who.
Fall down a shark-infested well without a rope.
I don't remember their damn name. I just remember what they said. And like, I was like, this is the one person that makes me just want to like stab. But everyone else was being just thoughtful and thinking along the lines of genre expectations. And I appreciated that.
Sure.
What I asked for was an opinion. They gave me an opinion.
Yeah, and to Heather's comment here, I was playing What If. That's how I came up with my idea. Exactly. I mean, that's how I came up with half of my ideas, is just playing the What If game. To
absolutely.
Promote What Now's channel, he has a video up right now on writing and becoming an author. And one of the things that he said, which I actually used with one of my clients in an email yesterday, is that if you decide to write fiction, you no longer have the right to see information as useless. I'm heavily paraphrasing that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so good because I was like, that's exactly how my brain works. I remember so much random crap that my wife will look at me and she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I learned it somewhere on Wikipedia at some point, but it was information
somewhere someday, blah, blah, blah. Yep. No, I completely want to hear. There's an ocean in the way for starters. Let's see. For the benefit of anyone I've never met, I'm not in the habit of just killing Authortubers, regardless of stories to the contrary. I'm allowed to say you're going to kill me because you're my friend. I said the same thing about my sister at the beginning of this live stream.
That's true.
I'm allowed to say that you're going to kill me because friends murder each other. It's what we do.
Okay, now I have promised you vampires, and we've already done Game of Thrones. I didn't do the second Game of Thrones one because we actually covered a lot of that topic already. So,
the natural progression of conversation.
Now, it is not the complete chapter. For those of you who are wondering, it is not the complete chapter. What I've done was
this is absolutely terrifying. I'm just gonna hide now.
No, don't hide. I basically just went through and highlighted some of the things that I liked and some of the things that I could see. And the colors mean nothing. The colors that mean absolutely nothing. It was just different highlights that were bright and shiny.
Let me assure you, after giving you a heart attack yesterday, this is not a criticism in color.
Yeah, no criticism in color.
All right.
Okay.
You might want to take down What Now's thingy just because it's overlapping funky. There we go. Not that I don't appreciate his humor.
Okay, let's see. Back. There we go. Okay. So this is the very opening part of it. Now, I don't have the context from the previous chapter, so there was some confusion initially. I was able to kind of piece everything together
that's fair.
As I went through. But so a crash burst from the opposite end of the club, and half of the dancers froze mid gyration. I paused on that one for a minute. I was because there was
back pause.
There are certain words like one of my clients, they wrote gesticulations like 3 times over the course of the book, and I only ever really wanted to see it once. Especially when it came to facial gesticulations. I wasn't entirely sure what that meant. It just
sounds like an innuendo waiting to happen.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie.
So I did make some recommendations there.
Okay, fair enough.
Gyration would probably fall under that if I was doing a full edit.
That's fair.
The back hallway blew apart, and a large metal tabletop tearing through the drywall like sand. Lily Edwards squirmed beneath the huge desk. Or a huge disc. So you've set the expectation that, like, holy crap, there's a tabletop that just blew through the wall.
Right.
Some of the phrasing, like through the drywall like sand. And so, like, here, what I'd like to see is more flow in
That's
the
fair.
fight. So instead of having 3 short sentences, combine 2 of those sentences into one.
Okay.
Like, for example, you could combine drywall like sand
Lily squirming beneath the huge disc.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep. So
that's what I mean. I can take criticism. Typically speaking, I can take criticism. All right.
Well, and it's such a small thing. Bye, Karen.
Bye, Karen.
Sorry, I just saw that. Bye. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for coming by and staying for 2 hours.
And yes, it is very colorful. I basically just went through it because I needed to find something. It's kind of like what was that show? Whose Line Is It Anyway? The colors made up and the rules don't matter. In this case. So yeah, like, combination there for one of them creates a smoother flow and transition. Then let's see.
For the record, just so everyone knows, I specifically told him if this was crap that he should tell me ahead of time. So if he calls it crap midstream,
it won't be crap midstream. That's not my flow.
I understand.
You watched how I did the opening paragraphs for people. I look for how to improve them, not to tear them down.
No, that's right.
So, and then
you're probably getting me back for what I did to What Now last time we streamed.
I think, yeah. I mean, really, there's not much that I would change there other than just kind of combining.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone pulled the fire alarm. And again, just for those who are watching, I've cut out huge swaths of this to avoid spoilers, and I'm focusing in on the things that created the dynamics for the fight, so that way those dynamic things can be a little bit more dynamic.
So this is all happening after I'd already set the scene. So just to give them the smallest bit, because this isn't all that important, they're in a dance club. There we go. Problem solved. Yeah. That's why there's gyrating people.
So someone pulled the fire alarm and the building shifted in and out of light more rapidly. The alarm lights and strobes interchanging. So that you're essentially saying the same thing twice.
Yeah, that is a bit repetitive.
And so, again, it's just a matter of, like, rephrasing. Like, half the time that we write stuff, it's just a matter of rephrasing to remove some of the repetition that we don't usually see, on the first run.
Right.
Or the water gush from the ceiling, each drop glaring against the flashing lights. This could actually probably be one longer sentence.
Yeah. I can see that.
Flow together, and it creates that because you're describing one scene, and so if you have a slightly longer sentence there, Lauren, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all. Yeah, like, we're under quarantine. We don't have lives anymore. Yeah. Someone said that I had a life, and I think it was you. And I was just like, we're allowed to have those? Like, I basically live in this box. This is where my life resides. Like, my pillow, it's on my desk, and just, sleep. Okay. So that could be a way to kind of create that dynamic, because it
shorten it. Basically, get the pacing down a little bit by taking out the excess. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. So the thought was shattered by a snap. As a snap ripped the air and Lily sank to the ground. I had no idea what this looks like. It was too vague.
Yeah, this is weird. Seeing it out of context makes it so much easier to pick this apart, but I have no idea what it's so weird looking at your own writing. You're like, what the fuck was I trying to say there? It's so damn weird looking at that.
Don't feel bad, because I had one of my clients that I submitted the full edit to. They were like, so what's this comment mean? And I read back over and I was like, oh, that was vague, wasn't it? Whoopsies.
All right.
But yeah, so like I don't know what the snap is and why Lily sank to the ground, and so clarifying that. Plus, it's not quite a sentence fragment because I mean it is in a paragraph, but again, that whole paragraph is set up by this first sentence, and there's not enough clarity there. So, if I understand what it's saying, it should be.
I know what it is. I know what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say because it'll ruin it, but I know what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
out of context spoilers. There's a half naked Asian involved in that. But you get no context, zero context for that until you read the story.
I can't decide if that's going to make more people want to read the book or run away from the book. I can't decide.
And I'm not going to tell them what chapter this is in either. They will understand it when they get there.
They'll just flounder along with people under the strobing lights and strobe too much.
The entire time, when is this going to happen?
Where is my half naked Asian chick? I was promised half naked Asian chick.
Yeah. So in there, like as a reader, I'm in. Can I say who it is?
This should be under Gabe's head if I'm remembering the story right. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in Gabe's perspective. Like, I want to see something visceral happen, right? Because you're
especially with that particular spot, because that part's pretty violent actually. So that should be more violent than
like show it, like showcase the fact that someone just gets their arm just freaking ripped off, and that's the snap. Like, and that will help. Okay, there's this chat. I just keep seeing it pop up all the. All right. Ding. Too many. Okay.
Mostly them joking around about COVID-19 isolating them, and Lauren pushing us to be scapegoats for her own.
Always do this. I can't say that I always do that because this is only my second stream that I've done. Unless you're binge watching all of my videos for the sheer sake of entertainment, and
in which case he loves you and is completely enamored by you.
Yeah, and then
let's just be honest.
Then jokes on you, COVID-19. I never had a life to begin with. Now look who's stupid. Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, I do feel annoyed that I can't go outside as much, but at the same time, I'm like, I didn't go outside before.
No, Dal. No, we do not write that. That is an
actually. There's several times that she makes fun of that. So.
I do remember that actually, and that was absolutely fantastic because if
just that little snippet. If blah 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 is going to happen, then I'm going to sparkle. I'm paraphrasing heavily here, but she tends to make fun of vampire tropes because she thinks they're hysterical.
Yeah, no sparkly vampires. They're an abomination. What now? Vampires are secondary.
I swear, I'm gonna have to have Nicole draw a character art just for the half-naked Asian chick, just to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
In my defense, she is a vampire, though. The half-naked chick is a vampire, so they're not secondary.
Yeah, those are called plot bunnies, Lauren. And it's like if you imagine like what the inside of my head looks like. One, besides it being like really dark and depressing, there's a field, and in that field are just plot bunnies, and they just multiply and they just run free. And
also, I have to do this real quick to Lauren. Scapegoat, looking for a scapegoat.
All right,
we shall continue. He was still at high school level. I admitted that earlier.
All right, so in the pink one, the pale jerk from earlier slammed her into the wall, powering through the sheetrock before she kicked him. Again, it's creating dynamic, right? There's things that are happening because in that moment she's just like, "Run away!"
Yeah,
and I like to see that.
Monty Python has been interrupted.
Yeah, it is. Bring me back something good, Heather. I'm hungry. It's getting close to my lunchtime.
I need a coffee refill if you're out.
So yeah, I like the dynamics.
Yeah, and I see what you mean. Like, I think that's another thing is a lot of writing advice is, make your sentences and your phrasing short to make it feel like it's moving quickly. And again, as a parent, you can overdo that. So.
Yeah. And for example, for the repetition, you've already used sheetrock, so I just say wall.
Yeah. I can do that. Well, unless I end up fixing that top one so it doesn't say sheetrock anymore. Anyway.
That's true. I don't know who Lola is.
That is so. Yesterday, she gave her opening paragraph to Sean to read her live stream, and it's her. I'm trying not to give away too much, but it's a paranormal mystery of sorts, if I'm remembering right, Lauren. I'm sorry if I'm not, but yeah, when she told me just the title, I was like, "Here's my money, take it."
I gotta love that.
I know that that's not a goat sound, but it's the only thing I got here.
Look, you've created an anti-vampire cure.
This would be the cure for my current anti. Aww. Considering I'm getting my writing criticized, I take that as a high compliment. I do mean that. I appreciate the feedback. I really do.
Yeah.
All wanting to hide behind fluffy unicorns aside.
I've read a portion of this, and it definitely is a cure-all for the bad taste that pretty much almost every other vampire book out right now, where it's like, oh my god, he's so dead and so hot.
In the sense that most of those are romance novels, which, let's be honest, is a form of escapism, and I'm not against that personally. If you want to escape into sexy vampire territory, that's fine. That's why people watch rom-coms. Just it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not everyone's cup of blood, okay? But yeah, no. The funny thing is, I have to put this out there for 2 seconds, and we can continue criticizing me. So when I started Blood Herring, I didn't know what it was going to be in the beginning. To me, it was a vampire novel that might have a mystery. I have been since very thoroughly informed. No, it's a mystery novel that happens to have vampires. You have to look at it that way. Okay, Fair enough. That's true. But when I started writing it, originally I thought it was going to be a paranormal romance because that's one of the genres I read a lot. And let's face it, romance sells like hotcakes.
It does.
So that's where I thought that was going. And the minute I started writing the dual perspective, I was like, this is not a romance novel. It's not even remotely a romance novel. I've still got Lauren pissed off at me because the two characters don't get together at the end of the damn book. So, which, by the way, there's no spoiler there. Trust me, you would not expect those two to get together. They hate each other. So, and then they properly hate each other, not they hate each other while they stare at each other's abs.
Yeah, that's good. That's far more entertaining.
My alien hearts don't understand. Aw, doll. We still love you. We still love you. All right, continue. All
right, so in the green, I didn't have the chance to confront her. She flew backward, 2 volleys, falling back, and I had to snap out of everything that I had just learned. Live now.
Yeah, this was a news. Yeah, this
is one of those things that we talked about where you are exploring something at the same time as action is happening.
Not hard now. This is a new sentence. I knew there was going to be at least one of those that you'd pull that is completely new writing and would be a problem, but that's okay.
Well, and it's one of those things that we all do. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I look back on my own writing and I do this.
Right.
And I have to go back through, and I'm going to be doing a lot of those edits as well.
Yeah.
We're trying to show everything that's happening while things are happening, because it's what's happening in our head in the moment.
Yeah, it is a weird compilation because you have to allow the reader to understand the information. And that's one thing I noticed when I've been reading books. It's like they do present information during a fight scene. They just present it in a way that is, by the way, there's that go. Because sometimes you do discover who the killer is in the middle of a fight scene. That's not what this is, by the way. He discovered something else. But, it is that balance of like, hey, we learned something just now. By the way, he's still trying not to die.
Right.
So
yeah. Yep. And it's one of those fine balances. And it's one of those things where it depends on how long you, and this is in general, during a fight scene, it depends on how long you draw that out that can affect the pace. If you're just like, oh crap, I just realized this, I'm dying or about to die, I'll put a pin in that conversation and come back to that later, kind of thing.
Well, there's also, I think there is something, and this is one of the pains in the asses of simply writing dual narrative from a male and a female. I'm not a guy. I don't think like a guy. I just don't, and I'm okay with that. But it does create challenges where I've had my husband read through something. He's like, honey, I love you, but either make Gabe into a girl or rewrite that because a guy doesn't say that. Like,
right.
Damn it.
Yeah, like when they go like
yeah.
Guy typically, or one that side
never
side
had
rant.
Gabe go like for the record. That's never come across my page. Like,
Side
continue.
rant has nothing to do with your book, but I hate it when people write that the guy bites his lip.
Yeah, no. Lily does that all the time. Lily does that all the time. But Gabe's big thing, and this is, I have no problem spoiling this because it's gonna be in the trailers. Gabe's big thing is pushing his hair back with his hands, to the point that there's actually a point in book 3 where Lily looks at him and goes, "Fuck, he's having a bad day because his hair's going every which way like Einstein."
So. Right, and those types of character quirks are great to have because it lets the reader in on the information. The problem is that when you have people, because like when I think of biting a lip, like I think of like the full on like thing, and it's just that's not a thing guys do.
Yeah, I've never seen a guy do that.
On average, average doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's the thing is we always have to like. And this is a tangent on its own that I actually got into in a debate with Savvy on feminism with is. There's always going to be someone that breaks the mold, and that's fine for your character to do that. Right. You have to be willing to address that there are trends, whether they're society or biology or what the hell ever, there are trends that exist within, groups of people, whether that be male, female, or whatever. You have to be willing to acknowledge those, because otherwise, if you write around them and you're not aware of them, it's going to stick out like a sore damn thumb.
Yeah, it will.
So
yep. Just gotta be aware.
Yeah. All right.
So a loud crash, and this is so you actually use A to start off 2 paragraphs back to back. Yeah, it's not any cardinal.
There's a little period there.
There is. It's because I erased everything.
Oh, okay. I was like, did I do that? What the hell?
No. All right. No, it's just I didn't erase everything before it. Sean starts first.
I support this. 100%. I would love to have a calendar of Authortubian men behind me, especially because I could totally see like Mr. January is Adrian from Strip Cover Lit. Mr. February is our lovely bard here. I can just see all the bearded glory happening on this calendar.
Yeah, that would be a requirement. They would all have to have beards.
No, there's 1 or 2 Authortubers who don't have beards.
As long as they don't have baby faces, it hurts the image.
We are all about we are all about diversity around here, okay? And almost breaking the damn microphone.
So a loud crash brought my attention back to the fight, and I turned. The tangle of bodies flailed, clawing, and elbowing each other. The brisk motion of the 3 vampires made it impossible to get any sight of them. I try not to swear. Crap! I lowered my gun.
If I'd known that, I wouldn't have sworn during your live stream. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's a personal thing. I try not to. I fail at that horribly, more often than not. But I try not to. I backed up as they rolled towards me. Water splashed up in several hues as the mass of bodies shot past me. So this is showing a lot of dynamics because there's this tangle of bodies. They're all kind of it kind of brings to mind like a cartoonish like cloud where arms are going, and
I keep getting that, and I've been trying to erase it since draft 1. And I can't get rid of the damn cloud. I can't. It's such a but at the same time, it's not like I want to get rid of it, but it's not invalid because at the same time they're moving faster than he sees people move. So it's like,
and I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is actually the tangle of bodies. That wording there indicates to me is what that looks like where the cloud is. So you could, if you just had, they flailed, clawed, and elbowed each other, the brisk motion of the 3 vampires, and then all of a sudden you've removed that.
Right.
It's really just that tangle of bodies that is doing that.
Could probably also take out that of the 3 vampires, because we already know it's 3 vampires fighting.
That's true.
By this point, that's very true. So it's like, get rid of that.
Yeah. So you can remove that, and then boom.
You're just in time for the flailing bodies, Heather. Hi. I'm sorry. After you brought the half naked Asian chick, I just had to.
We demand homage. What have you brought us?
Yes. Where's my coffee? The cup is still empty. I dump it upside down, but then I have drips all over my desk.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Yeah.
So those are things that you could immediately do to clean that up.
Yeah, tighten it down, basically, batten down the hatch.
And then
yeah, this one's a little weird. Again, this is a new sentence, so I'm not surprised it landed on this page.
This is too slow.
Right.
Like I jumped back, lowering my gun, and as the water splashes up in several hues is and then again massive bodies that indicates the same thing as tangle,
right?
So you're showing that twice, and I think that's part of that cloud analogy that comes back.
Yeah, the cartooniness.
Yeah, and so you remove that, and you know what you could do is you could actually like have Lily just like freaking chuck somebody his direction, and he has to jump back out of the way. And then she spider monkey leaps on top of him and starts beating the crap out of him while there's a half naked lady Asian trying to distract her. Again,
because I know all the little things with the characters in the scene.
You guys don't get any more context than this until you go. And
I just imagined a cannon shot half naked Asian chick landing on poor Gabe.
Yeah, I think that would.
I realize that totally sets up a whole bunch of material for fan fiction writing, but you know what? It's an interesting image.
Yeah. So that could be something that you could do. It creates a different dynamic. It speeds up him dodging out of the way.
Right.
Because as the tangle, it sounds like they're not only moving in slow motion because he's just like, oh, let me
analyze this tangle of human muscles.
Go move along. Keep moving. So they landed with a heavy splat. The man on bottom, his arch stretched up as Lily clawed and snapped. So I'm assuming snapping with her mouth.
Yeah.
Because there's been snap used before, and that indicated something different.
Gotcha.
Then the smaller woman choked Lily, yanking her net back. Her other hand yanked her hair, keeping Lily from her intended target. So I like the dynamics that you've set up here, where you have her on top. The only thing that you have that I would change is you repeat Lily's name 3 times in the same paragraph.
Right. Yeah. And again, I love that I can sit here and say, yeah, see that thing that I said that you shouldn't do? I'm doing it. Everyone fucking does it. Oops.
I ran my first draft through Pro Writing Aid, and I have Trinia's name like 8 times in 3 paragraphs. I was just like, oh.
Yeah. I do remember why this happened. It's because it's really hard for me because there's 2 female vampires in this section right now. So it's like he's sitting here trying to distinguish between those 2, and I'm like, how the fuck do I keep those 2 separate? Without writing the PI, because let me tell you, the PI slows down a fight thing.
I can see the fan fiction coming from Sean now.
Yeah. Yeah, so can I.
I don't think that is exactly what he had in mind.
Oh yeah, I know. I just wanted to get him back.
But yeah, so like you can so like what I've been telling my students is that usually the first and the last name usage is correct. The middle one is the one that you can cut.
Right.
And you also have 4 small sentences in this. So you have sentence here, sentence here.
Right. Again, coming back to that whole, when you try to make shorter sentences, you can overdo it, folks.
Yeah. And so combining some of those will really help, especially like typically like this one. This would be the one that I would combine, is this one right here, because it allows you to stay
yanking and yanked. Yay me. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And with Lily used both times there, you're able to remove Lily because the context is still going into the next part of that sentence. Right. So you don't have to reiterate who it is.
Right. Apparently that's exactly what now meant. Also, hi, Berry Bad Books.
Hey. Let's see.
See, this is what I like. I will, for those who might be coming from my side of things and tramped over here, which is awesome, by the way. this is one of the things I like about your live stream where you were critiquing people's things is you're like sitting there, you're finding those little tweaks. Like you said during our stream, it's about preserving character or writer voice without, leaving the writing clunky or weird or awkward, because there's a balance.
Yeah, there totally is. And seriously, like it is one of those things that is such a second, third, fourth draft thing at that point. You don't worry about it in the first draft. You just freaking write the story. And I would say that to everybody in this stream, and for those who watch it afterwards, freaking write the story first, then go back and refine a lot of these.
Especially when it comes to fight scenes, since that's where our main thing is right now, is like, honestly, my biggest way that I learned how to write fight scenes, and even though this is not, you guys are getting the worst of the worst of this scene, I think, but that's a good thing. I'm happy with that, actually, because it's not as bad as I thought it was. But with that being said, the area where I learned the most about writing fight scenes is by writing it and going, this sucks, and fixing it.
Reading it out loud.
Oh God, reading out loud is a huge thing, which is awkward when you live in a 1-bedroom apartment, which is where I was when I originally wrote Blood Herring. Is like, I don't want to walk around and read it while my husband's gaming with his friends and yelling at Call of Duty, But with that being said, is one thing, I just said this actually to someone earlier today, your rough draft is where you're planting the seed. Your hands are going to get dirty.
Yep.
The editing is where your draft is going to bloom, and that is especially, I think, critical with fight scenes, because that's where you're going to read it and go, like I just did, because some of these sentences are brand new. What the fuck was I trying to say there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you take that time, when I write, in the way that I help my students, especially when it comes to choppy sentences or paragraphs or things like that, is I go, okay, just imagine, like, anytime that I'm reading through my stuff, I am, as weird as this may sound, I'm mentally speaking out loud. I'm emphasizing the what I know the punctuation is meant to do. So if I have a hard stop with the period, I make that hard stop as I'm saying it in my head. If I'm having the semicolon, if I'm having the colon, if I'm having the comma, I have those moments where I take that half a breath at a comma that is supposed to indicate before continuing on. That can help you tremendously when you're figuring out whether a sentence is too choppy or not.
Right. Well, it sounds like basically, so what you're also recommending, which is something I hadn't considered, but is really, really, really smart. Use your punctuation to move your characters, essentially.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Next one. The man growled and Lily dropped, twisting her body and slamming the woman behind her onto the concrete dance floor. I love that. Because it's very descriptive. We know that what that kind of move is, and so we can relate to that. The woman let out a pained wheeze, and Lily shot her elbow backward over and over. Again, appropriate use of Lily's name in this, because you are differentiating her from the other her.
And I think I might change it to wheezed in pain or something instead of let out.
Of her just just pounding her with the elbow in the face over and over again.
Yeah, she's scrappy. She's definitely in the scrappy category.
Yeah. So the woman wouldn't release her. So the sentences start off the same.
Yeah, repetitive again.
So that would be something that I would try and then combine this sentence together. You could probably actually combine. You could probably combine these ones together. And trim it just a tad to remove that middle.
Right.
But yeah, I think that you would be able to do that there, and it would create that flow where you're not having to use the woman necessarily in that same way.
I feel very Sherlocky right now. The woman. Anyway.
The woman.
The woman. Okay. All right.
Then she crouched, her hands diving into her boots. She pulled out a knife from each one, both glimmering. Tiny specks of light danced over the silver.
Yeah, this one was a little complicated. Yeah. Take the period, put a comma.
Yep.
Keep it moving. Move along.
I love, and actually you could combine this whole thing, because you could say pulling out a knife from each.
Yep.
And it removes the she at the beginning of both of the sentences, creates that really what you're doing is you're creating the illusion of variety in the sentence structure by not having those types of repetitions. And being able to do that is going to both strengthen it, and it's 9 times out of 10, like when it comes to good editing, it's just a matter of rephrasing the words. It's just kind of reformatting them. So instead of saying, she pulled out, it's pulling out a knife. And the pulling,
which also makes it more fluid in the writing. Yeah,
exactly. Someone said
taking notes about punctuation. Yes, doll. I'm kind of over here too. Like, I was drawing a picture of an angry pine cone, but now I'm like making notes. So you don't get your angry pine cone anymore. Sorry. So I tried. It's ugly as hell. It looks like a shit, but
that's gonna be a new emoji. Just wait.
Great.
It's gonna be like the little poop emoji, but it's gonna be a pine cone.
Sean's a meme and I'm an emoji. No, Sean's a meme. Sean's a GIF. I'm an emoji. Got it.
Hold on.
Can we spring it on himself? Hold the phone. I'm kind of waiting for him to go like ... over here on the side.
Wait for it.
You're gonna murder me.
So far back in our conversation.
Oh, are you going into Facebook chat?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just gonna open up the thing though.
That's fine. Yeah, I didn't expect you like.
Oh wait, promises of vengeance. I'm getting close. I'm getting closer. Oh my gosh, hurry it up. There we go.
Oh no, he's about to leave.
No, Sean, not yet.
Sean, stay and get
Don't do it, Sean.
Stay and get mad at me.
Oh, it won't open in Facebook.
It's okay. We'll pull it up at the end of the live stream and he can murder us later.
You lucked out.
Yeah.
All right. But I have it saved to my laptop for future use. I'm just
we'll just add to a Twitter stream, sometime.
Exactly. Okay, so
all right. Back to embarrassing me instead of my friends.
Yes. All right, so a loud snap. So again, that's
more snapping. Snap. Yeah.
Stole the air just before the crash. Vague. Yeah. Loud snap stole the air. What does stealing the air look like? So a little bit more detail there. Hundreds of tiny little mirrors splintered across the ground as the disco ball dissolved over the male vampire. So this part was confusing because dissolved over, in my mind, created the illusion that it goes before it actually hits.
Right. Okay.
So if it hits the male vampire and shatters, that has a different implication.
Right. Yeah.
His body spasmed and went limp. Totally makes sense. Lily lunged, the knives gleaming in each hand as she landed.
They gleam, so I don't need to do that again. Anyway.
Her arms arced in several trails, red sprinkling her blouse, and the woman twisting in apparent pain. So this part
gets a little lengthy, I think.
Yeah, I would combine it, shorten it, and be more visceral with it. It's over describing, like if you have Lily lunged, plunging the knives into the woman's chest, making bloody arcs across her blouse as she stabbed repeatedly, that kind of thing.
Stronger verbs.
Yeah, the woman twisting in apparent pain, like it would be apparent if she's being stabbed that she's in pain. So I would just say she's in pain or agony.
Or screamed.
Like she's getting stabbed with a butter knife or something, like, no, don't stab me.
I could always have her get her heart, carved out with a spoon. It's an option.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, now that would be cool.
Anyway.
Lily flipped one of the knives in her hands and plunged it sideways into the Asian woman's neck. I like that because it's again that quick bam. The woman still. So I would say the woman is one to watch out for in this because it's repeated.
At some point I just need to print it and read it out loud again. I'm gonna kill a tree for this.
Yeah. Well,
I will kill a tree for my art, damn it.
And the thing is that you can actually remove it by just combining these two sentences together. Right. Sideways into the woman, at the Asian woman's neck, her eyes blinking in cold fury as red pulled into the puddle below them, and she stilled, or became still. Something to that effect. It removes the woman from here when you've used it here,
right?
And it still keeps the overall flow,
right?
And then it is the second time Lily's started. Well, this is actually a sentence, so that one's different. This one's a paragraph.
Yeah, but they're kind of close together, so.
Then Lily sat back and gave me an annoyed look. And then, so instead of saying she, shouting over the ruckus.
Right. I can take out the surrounding us because it's kind of obvious.
Yep. No. And then barely audible. Like, you shot me.
You shot me, you asshole.
Yeah. And then I cut out the rest because there was a lot of spoiler stuff in there that I didn't want to get into.
I do appreciate. I trusted your judgment on that one as a parent by the fact that I said, here's the whole fucking chapter. You do with it what you want. So
yeah.
I trusted you.
And this is really where the fight ends. Both of the targets have been neutralized. The fight ends, and then we enter into something completely different.
Yeah. Then it's a little bit of a squabble. Less of a fight, more of a meow.
Yeah, exactly. And so you guys can see through the fight scene that those little repetitions, those little things. And again, this is not stuff that you worry about on the first draft.
No.
This is second draft, third draft, refining the arc of the story, refining a lot of the word. And it's seriously, you're not even going to have to rewrite the whole scene. It's just rephrasing some of the sentences for flow.
Yeah.
And that's where I find the majority of readers have that issue, is that it's actually just a flow thing.
Right.
And then once you fix that, everything else actually falls together because you've rephrased it.
Right. And I would like to add in there, and this is a little side note, but I'm sure he'll blush in about 10 seconds. This is one more reason, guys. When I get feedback, I might sit here and pull up fluffy unicorns and coasters and every other thing I can stick in front of the stupid camera. But honestly, the reason this is not as bad as I was expecting it to be is probably because I did get as much feedback as I did. And like I said, I heard people say, this is how your character's coming across. This is this. So it's like I've been able to fix a lot of the big ticket problems and refine it down to, okay, just a little sentence structure and I'm probably fine.
Exactly. So, and
I sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, but another point entirely.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it brings up a good point. That's why it's so essential to do developmental editing on the front end of things, because you fix the big issues.
Right.
I've had people who submit first drafts, and I'm one of the editors that is rather rare in the sense that I accept first drafts.
Right.
Most developmental editors, or any other editor really, they won't touch it because of the amount of work that is usually required.
Right.
So, and instead of for context, they usually will charge for the amount of work it's going to take, whereas I charge a flat rate just based on the word count. I don't care how rough it is.
Right.
It may take 1 or 2 times going through doing a developmental edit before it's ready for a copy editor, but that's kind of a different subject. Doing a developmental edit where you're looking at that big picture structure, when I go through that, I tell people the better the writing is, the more nitpicky I will be about these smaller issues. I had someone submit, I've had several people submit.
Well, especially with everything that's going on right now. I'm sure you've gotten more and more.
Not as much. I mean, I will fully admit I'm a luxury product.
That's fair.
No one needs to pay for my services. They can do a lot of it themselves on the front end. The consulting is more along the lines of what I would like to move towards versus full developmental edits, because I actually get to work with the person and help them set themselves up and find editors who aren't going to screw them over, because I run a group for editors, so I know the people won't screw them over.
Right.
So there's that. But the thing that I get into is that, sometimes there'll be people who write in what I call third person present tense. It's not a thing. But they've
made it a thing.
They made it a thing, and it reads like an outline, and it's typically the people who are most familiar with screenwriting.
Right.
They are the ones who
I can
most
see that.
typically fall into that, because that's what they're used to doing. You have to describe the beats that are happening versus showing them. And so I work with them and I'm like, okay, this is what you need to fix. But because that's such a big structural issue, I can't get into like the nitty gritty details.
Right.
Your book has the structure already there. And so it's more of now, okay, this is finesse.
Right.
It's finessing and wordsmithing things to create what it is that you want to convey to the reader.
Right. And that's the funny thing is you and Tim have both said the exact same thing, almost word for word. Like, I actually almost posted that to Instagram today. I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell people why you said I fucked up. And then I came on live stream and let you tell me why I fucked up, which is fine.
Heather, yeah. Oh, right, about the Star Wars one, Sacred Text website. Okay, I'll have to check it out at some point.
I have noticed that I think that YouTube maybe has some sort of algorithm, damn glasses, set to remove links, because I posted your Facebook link earlier and it just went bloop, bye.
Oh.
So I'm guessing that YouTube does that to prevent people from going off into internet wonderland.
It's probably true. You know, and I mean, I've sacrificed my soul to my Google overlords, and so I'm hoping that has appeased them or kept them appeased long enough for some of the other stuff to stay. Lauren, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm touched. I don't know when it's going to be, but if you want help during that, I do consultations too.
Yeah. Again, so. I will say, I really, really tried to save up the money so I could afford you, because I was like, Tim's work was fabulous. Anyone watching this, I loved my editor, Tim Ortiz. I'm not giving him shit. Number one, Howard's my friend. So, you want to support your friends. But number two, I will say that he had a lot more detail of the things I was worried about and was helping me figure out the fine little points to help me address things. So he's definitely worth the money.
I appreciate that. The thing that I try and tell people, and I try not to nerd too hard about it because I can, and I did definitely do with my students at least once.
It's endearing. Your nerding is endearing. It's what endeared me to you. Let me put that.
Is that the art of storytelling, telling a good story is where my passion lies. Because that's where you have stories that leave an impact and actually make a difference in people's lives. Those ones aren't always going to be famous, but they will be famous within certain circles.
Right.
And telling the story is what is most important to me, because, I have poured let's see, I was 16 when I started, 14 years of my life into writing my fantasy novel. And it's become an entire world in and of itself that is going to span 12 books. And the purpose of the storytelling there is what I pull when I do my editing, is I look at it from 3 point of views: as an editor, as an author, and as a reader.
Right.
And not all editors focus on those. They will focus more on maybe the mechanics, or they will focus on different aspects, and they don't really know how to connect with the author voice. I have the ability to do that. I've trained myself to have the ability to do that, to mimic what the author's style is, because I want to see them succeed. I have the same dream that they have, and I want to make them have that dream become a reality. And so that's where I focus a lot on, where my editing is different from a lot of other editors. And when people think of editors, they think that we're all rabid, foaming at the mouth. We have fangs and claws, and that our entire collection is red pens. While I do have pens,
I have pens.
There's not even one that's red. Like, I don't even have red pens.
I see a red colored pen.
No, that's a pink pencil. That's my map sketching pencil.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, no, but my favorite one.
I would totally work with you, but I'm afraid you would. This one. You are a token fan after all.
Okay, wait. I'm missing something.
There's a comment here that.
Oh wait, holy crap! I've missed a lot. Hold on, let me get caught up. Okay.
I don't know what that gesture was for.
Heather, you're right. I need to let things flow instead of trying to edit while I'm writing. Yes, just let it flow. Like I pants
Let it
50,000
flow. Let
words in
it flow.
29 days, and I just let it flow. I didn't have a plot. I just wrote. I established the plot on the second draft. Get the story out. The most important thing in my mind is that you can fudge a okay plot with relatable characters. If you have relatable characters that people can invest in the plot, basically you've created a character-driven story, and the plot comes second to that.
Yeah.
To me, in my mind, Lord of the Rings is character-driven. Primarily is character-driven. Secondly is, we have to destroy the ring because Sauron.
This end of the world thingamajigger. Yeah.
Exactly. Because really, while that is the large over arc.
Right, that's the premise. That's what's selling the novel, essentially.
But if you look at, you have Sam and Frodo, you have Legolas and Gimli, you have Aragorn and Gandalf, you have these different relationship dynamics within the story. And while it all pertains to the plot, the story is character driven, because you are invested in them. So yeah, journalism background, I can totally understand that. I mean, I've worked with people who work in IT, and they were writing about drones and tech literacy, and they wrote shorter paragraphs. They wrote shorter sentences. Well, not paragraphs, because it was like 250 words long, but shorter sentences overall. And so it was much harder to get them to kind of space it out.
Yeah. See, I do want to add one thing in here. I think also if you let your first draft flow for what it is, because I tried so many times, and I will admit I'm the person that goes back and I edit my last chapter before I write the next one. However, I do very minor edits, like, okay, this sentence doesn't make sense. Okay, they could have said that better. I'm not fixing the story. I'm fixing that chapter so that the next chapter is easier to move into.
Yeah.
That being said, I still usually draft, except for my current novel, because my current novel is a bitch. I still normally draft very quickly because I just let it be what it is. I understand that my first draft is going to be where I have all my tropes, all my cliches, all my bad writing, but it also helps me understand my strengths. Like the two things that my friends have told me repetitively and my beta readers and my critique martyrs is your world building's really solid and your dialogue is really solid. These are things that I had to enhance and improve on, but I knew where my strengths started, so I knew where to focus. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh. And to your point, Lauren, I think doing self-edits, it's really beneficial. I have a video, if you haven't seen it, on how to improve your self-editing and how you actually create a writing process, and that's going to help you edit faster and more effectively. So you can go and check that out. But yeah, it is a great skill to learn how to do. And if you're going to do a developmental edit this first round, take 4 to 6 weeks to do it. That's how you do it right. Dallas said something, I would totally work with you, but I'm afraid you would over detail my story. You are a Tolkien fan after all. I'm the total opposite. That's the thing, is that I adapt to every single client that I've worked with. It doesn't matter what style they're writing in. I mentioned this in my other one, and I'm not trying to toot the horn here.
Toot away, dude. You're toot. That sounds like a fart joke. I'm sorry.
Let it out, Steven. Let it out.
I'm just gonna mute myself and let you toot away.
To your point, Dal, what I try and do is when I'm talking with clients or prospective clients, I find out what their why is, what their message is, and who they're writing for. At that point, I can write and adapt to any style that you're writing. Because trust me, I am very versatile. I've helped people write everything from tech literacy to drones to grieving to gratitude. Those were all nonfiction, to fantasy, to urban fantasy. Did I say science fiction already? I'm trying.
Not that I know of, but
okay, science fiction is in there. Like I have to superheroes, to mysteries. Like I've adapted to every single one of them, because all I'm doing is I'm not inserting my writing style into their style. I am adapting what my writing style could be to match what they are trying to convey. So like, as much as I love world building, if someone's not world building, I am only going to pick out the little pieces that will help you with the world building. I'm not going to be like, you need to add Tolkien level world building, because very few people can pull off Tolkien level world building. I cannot. As much as I'm a fan, I've taken and I've adapted it to my own style, but I cannot do the level of lore that he does.
Well, I think it's also fair to say, I mean, they just saw me go through, or you just go through my stuff, and I am not a Tolkien fan. Like, I did read Lord of the Rings, but I had to do audio. Like, there's some classics I have to do audiobook, not because I like audiobooks, but because it's too damn dense. I can't get through it any other damn way. So I think it's completely fair to say that, yeah, you adapt very well to other people's styles, because mine is not that detail heavy. Mine is, you know, here's the real world. We're going to stick a vampire over here, stick a vampire over there. And we're going to make that work. And not once have you or any of the other editors I've worked with sat there and said, you know, you need to add more of this and that. No, they just say, hey, you can make this, point more clear so we understand where this is coming from.
Yep. It's little contextual things that make the biggest difference if you're not going to do a lot of world building. Like, I'm working with somebody who is on par with Tolkien level lore, and I love it. But she actually goes to the point where it's overdone. And so I'm actually helping her trim back some of the world building. Like, the reader doesn't need to know all of this in the first couple of chapters. Spread it out, make it more versatile, make it really, when it comes to world building, how the world impacts the characters says more about the world than you saying, here's how the world works.
I have to agree. Like, there's actually a series. I have no problem saying which series it is because I've reviewed it openly. I can't remember the name. I think it was called The Blood Mark. Yeah, I know. Tease me away.
No,
you're welcome.
Lawrence.
Dude, placeholders are a damn handy thing. Okay, but to that point, like, this book, and it was every damn book in the series, so I stopped reading after a little while. Started off with this opening about how, the world had both vampires and humans and monsters and and how every single area had these little towns that were just for the monsters so that the monsters could follow their own rules and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is all really interesting, but what would have been 10 times more interesting for me as a reader is to experience this through the characters who are sitting here walking around a werewolf and it's normal to them. Because that's the thing is, like, when you make your character act like this is normal, that's when your reader goes, what the?
Yep, exactly. If it's a fantastical world and the fantastical things are everyday things for the characters, it's still amazing for the reader. They're just like, what?
Yeah, I mean, you can't have your character going, oh yeah, there's vampires, it's boring. But you can have the character go up and say, yeah, this vampire was standing next to me at the coffee shop. No, that doesn't happen in my book, to be clear. But you can have that, and the reader is going to be like, oh shnikes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we totally got off topic with the fighting, but it does
play in, though. It does play in.
And that's
your world building will affect your fighting and yada yada. So.
It absolutely will. And more often than not, people don't actually take into consideration the world building when they're doing the fight scenes. And it's in those little details. It's in, where is the location? What is in the location? Can anything in that location be used in the fight against those people?
Right.
Whether it's magic or whether it's swords.
The disco ball.
Or disco ball. Exactly. It's a modern version of something that is part of the environment. He sees it as an opportunity and it works.
Yeah, he is at a lower strength and he goes, okay, I don't have the strength to overpower this thing. How do I fix it? Obviously, I need to write that better, but his use of that is still clever. And that's actually, okay, one more thing I will give Ray and Hall here is, she did mention that it's like, if you have your fight scene taking place in a boiler room, someone better damn well pick up a wrench or a paint can and smack someone in the head with it. If you're having your fight scene take place in a forest, someone better trip over a twig. That environment needs to impact your characters and impact your fight scene and vice versa. It needs to all work together.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do those kinds of, you have to do that kind of work. Otherwise it doesn't work.
That, and you also have to look at, like, what did you set up earlier? Like, one thing with the later fight scenes is I had realized I had set up something that my character could use. Like, obviously Lily has knives in her boots. That's something I set up very early in the book, well before it became, a requirement. But I also set up, again, increased strength, fangs, da. So when she goes and tries to tear someone's face off, no, she doesn't do that either, by the way, but just as an example, if she was trying, tear your face off with her fangs, okay, you could buy it because I set it up early.
So. Right. Exactly. You set the reader's expectations for fights, and that builds in, and it makes it a lot easier to.
You have a compliment coming your way, by the way.
Have a what?
You have a compliment. I think you just responded to it, though. So
this one?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, as far as adapting to the author's needs and style, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's what makes a good editor, is that they're able to enhance the voice. And actually, I'll be going into these types of questions and addressing this with the editing panel that I'll be hosting in a couple of weeks.
Woohoo!
I have 3 other editors from the editing group that I run. What's that?
Hit the bell for notifications, people.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't subscribed, at the bell. Again, I suck at self-promotion.
I'm trying to urge him to do more of it.
Yeah.
Feel free to help me bully him. It's so hard to point.
Go do something. Say something about yourself. Go toot.
Go toot. You realize I'm going to make a button of you saying that now?
Yeah, it'll probably be on a shirt.
No. I'll just gif it. I'll do the exact same thing I did to Sean to you.
Nice. I like it.
I'll gift my friends. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the mark of a good editor when they can take your work and enhance it. They see what it is that you're trying to say, and they help you say it better.
Then I think also they try to understand, because you pointed out a couple areas, you're like, I don't know what you're trying to say here. That's important for me to know, that you, a professional who does this for a living, can go, what? Yeah. Then I know the reader is going to do the same thing. They're not professionally trained to look for that crap.
Right. And that's where, me wearing the 3 hats that I do when I'm doing an edit comes in handy, because first and foremost, I'm a reader. I mean, I got into developmental editing because I was doing book reviews for friends on Wattpad. And I could see that. I happened to be able to see things with the characters, with the plots. And I was like, man, I could do something like that. And then I discovered developmental editing was a thing. And I realized, holy crap,
this is a job.
I was like, this is what I do. And of course I picked a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of editing. So no one knows developmental editors exist. And so educating people on it is a challenge, especially when they're like, I'm an indie author, I can do it. I do it myself.
Okay. One of these days I do want to have you either on this channel or on my channel, because here's the thing is I have a friend, and I'm not going to say who it is, who actually has flat out gone to blows with another indie author because she cannot afford an editor. That's her problem. At the same time, she's like, I don't want to just put my book over on Wattpad. I feel like my book is worth value. She's like, it might be maybe not the same as someone who could get edited, blah, blah, but I think that's a whole nother thing, is we don't talk about that divide in indie authors who cannot afford or do not afford, different choice there, an editor, and the people who are just trying to find a way. It's
yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, I can't afford an editor. I need an editor. I had a developmental editor. We actually swapped stories. She actually won a giveaway, and then she's like, I feel bad that you're going to be reading all of this. Can I read yours? And I was like, it's not good, but sure. I'd be more than happy to take feedback. And it was incredible feedback. But I know as an editor that I will need editors to do it. So I'm looking at doing it a different way. I'm going to be doing the hybrid publishing route. And so, and actually Monday the 13th, I'll actually be interviewing the head developmental editor for the publisher that I freelance with, and talking with her about their publishing process. Because one, I've had students go through them, and it's been fantastic to watch how they've been taken care of. Two, they help them get the editing that they need, which I love. And so I want to help to promote them and give them different options. I have another person who does independent book reviews. I'll be doing an interview with him in a couple of weeks. Sweet. And he's going to be talking about book promotions and how to help best put your book forward as an indie author. So excited for that.
Yeah, I'm going to be tuning in for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to talk with him. He's a part of my editing group, and it was a great phone call. So I was very excited.
Did you fanboy?
I didn't quite fanboy.
I had to tease you.
Yeah. I'll probably fanboy a little bit with Shanda because she's awesome.
That's right.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I know that I'm not going to be able to afford an editor, and I realize that developmental editing is the most expensive form of editing because it takes the most work.
Right, because you're not just looking at, hey, you forgot an apostrophe. You're looking at, it's kind of like telling someone how to repaint something.
Yeah,
you're looking at the art and trying to say, this is how you might be able to make this a little bit more understandable, clear, blah blah blah. Here's a plot hole. That's not as easy as something that's cut and dry 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it is so much more difficult in that sense, and it requires so much more work. And I mean, like the average, according to the Editor Freelancers Association, like EFA, I think is what the abbreviation is. Like the average that they charge per word is anywhere between 9 and 12 cents. And if you have a big book, it is going to cost you a lot. There are obviously people who have that kind of stupid money to throw away. I don't know them. If I did, I would be making more.
Hi, friend.
I charge 4 cents a word, which is half of what the average is, but also more than what someone starting off is going to charge.
Right.
I'm in that middle ground.
Right.
And so, okay.
You're still building your business.
Orange things popping up on the side.
Aw, people are acknowledging you on your own live stream.
Where is it? There it is. Is that?
Oh, thank you, Heather.
Lauren, yes and no. I don't have another job other than being dad. I'm not paid for that. I'm paid for that in love, cuddles, and hugs.
It's emotional payment.
Exactly. So essentially, like I have a couple different sources of income. So I have gigs that I have on Fiverr, partially just to kind of get my name out there and hopefully someone sees me. Then I have just my straight editing gigs that I do. I do consultations and what I call strategic story planning. So that is where you either pay for an hour of my time or you pay for 5 hours. Obviously, like the more you pay or the more hours you do, the bigger the discount is. But the more hours you do, it's based on the amount of hours that you have available. So I work with you for that amount of hours to structure your book and do all that kind of stuff. That's one source. The other source is the Bard's Storytelling Academy, which I hope to be doing more because that's more of an evergreen thing. It doesn't require me to do constant updates or edits. It is there. People can simply buy it. They can enjoy it. They can then join the community. I have a Facebook group set up for it. And people can come and join. And then, I plan on, now that I actually know how to do streaming without it being a giant pain in my backside, doing Facebook Lives that talk to those people specifically and answering those types of questions. So I have a couple different revenue streams, but developmental editing and story coaching is my job.
That's the bread and butter for you.
It's a matter of trying to get enough of a clientele base where I can make it a livable job. Because that's the hard part for everybody. When you're starting off as a small business, getting the cred, helping people know that you even exist and what you do actually does benefit them.
Having your friends bully you into promoting yourself.
Exactly. It is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
I feel like somebody else commented.
No. There was a comment from Heather Dewey Patet. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but Heather has said, I am not paid as a mom either, if only. Yeah.
You guys would make way more than I do. Way more. Way more. Just by hour, you guys should easily be making like $90,000 to $100,000 a year.
Oh my gosh. No kidding. Raising the next generation is a whole nother topic on its own.
That is for sure. Although my son is constantly asking me to help him write his story, which I'm super happy about.
Oh, that's adorable. See, I don't have that. I do have my niece who she does not do, I think I can show this without giving away her identity. One minute here. She doesn't do any form of, okay, I'm gonna have to call my husband back apparently. Good to know. She does drawings and stuff like that, which she's only 13, but there are days I'm like, damn, you're who I want to be when I grow up, kid. Let's see if I can find it here. There it is. This is as cool as I promise is. This is not just me aunting out for a second. Let's see if I can get it angled.
Nice.
Right? Like that. I love the fact because I do obviously doodle. I normally don't doodle crappy pine cones. I actually do draw for fun. And she actually will come to me and say, hey, what about this? What about this? I love that relationship where I can be like, here's something I struggled with as an artist at your age. You should totally experiment with it because you can get better than me. And that's awesome. And you should do that. So
yeah. To answer Heather, that is awesome. So like I said, I run a group that is specifically designed for editors on Facebook. So if you want the link, find me on either Facebook or Twitter. You can find me at the editing bar.
Yeah, both your links should be down below, right? Your social medias?
Yes, all my social media links are down below.
Okay.
And so this is why I have her, because she reminds me that I actually have things in the show notes other than just, hey guys, this is what the show's about. So
that's my only purpose, I swear.
I can add you to the group. For those of you who I don't know if I've really shared this, I do also have another group that I run that is specifically for connecting authors with editors, and it's called the Edit 10 program for authors. You can find that on Facebook as well. That is open for any and all to join. There is questions on there because I screen people to make sure that editors, spammers, and basically anybody who has not been evaluated by moi is not in the group. And everyone in the group, every editor in that group has offered 10% off to all new clients across the board.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Because that can make a difference for sure.
It can make a huge difference. And that's why we started it. So in everybody was on it. It's a fairly quiet group. I'm still trying to figure out like how to make it a little bit more lively. But again, part of it is just getting it out there, helping people understand like, hey, it's here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you guys want the link to that, I don't know if I can post it in the comments.
You can't post links in the comments, but you might be able to do like www space, whatever it is, space. And
that's true. Okay. Let me copy this here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm adding spaces into it, so just understand that
it's going to look funny.
You're going to need to remove the space, otherwise it won't show up. Middle of the road as far as pricing is like that's where most of us are, you know, and so. Oh, hey, it works. Yay. Yeah. So you can find, I'm on there. So I offer 10% to the people that go through that. It's through that specifically. I don't offer 10% off to every single person. It's for those who are in that group. For you guys, I obviously would, because, like I'm familiar with you guys.
Aww. Friendship discount.
The developmental edits.
Right.
The consulting, my price range, I don't really take 10% off of that because I'm not really making a whole lot on the back end.
Yeah, you have to find a place, right? I mean, like that's one thing.
I have private billy goats that as children that I have to feed, and so I do have to make some sort of.
There's a second goat reference in this damn street. But
yeah,
all I'm thinking is Jurassic Park now. Anyway, look at these lists. So,
do you guys have any other questions regarding?
Yeah, that's where I was going. This any final questions you guys want to throw at us?
World building. I mean,
his editing services. I keep going the wrong way.
I know, it's like
it's so messed up.
You're always right.
See, yeah, next time I put us on a live stream, I'm just gonna do this the entire time. I'm just gonna be in the middle, just.
Heather, same to me. Yes, I have no formal education in editing. I talked about this in Howell's video. I have no formal education in editing at all.
Again, another whole thing that we could do a whole topic on is the whole credentials thing that the writing community has. Because I'm like, sometimes I'm sorry, my cover designer does, to my knowledge, I could be wrong about this, so hopefully I'm not, but to my knowledge, she does not have credentials. Like you, she has experience. And despite my bipolar freak out this last week, that cover is amazing. And the cover she made for herself is amazing. So sometimes skill does supersede credentials.
Yeah, because there's a difference between what you've learned head knowledge wise in a course, in a class, in school, and then there's how it applies in real life and the actual tactile feel of what it is to write a book. Many editors have never written a book, so while they understand the mechanics, they don't understand how to actually implement it.
Well, I think there's also something you said, just in all fairness, like, for example, because I have just enough information about music, and because my brother's, I mentioned this to you last time I streamed, my brother's very much into music. I can listen to music and tell where the problems are. I can't necessarily tell you how to fix them, though, because again, I don't have enough. I haven't explored that part of my knowledge that well. On that same note, though, if you put me in front of a painting, my painting skills are very mediocre. I've done the dumbass thing of showing that on my channel once. They're very mediocre, but I understand the basic principle. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, this and this and this, like I said, when my niece comes to me with her art, I can say, what if you did this with the character? I can tell you where you can fix it. Even if I can't do it, I can tell you what you could do better.
Yep.
I think skills are a larger part of credentials over a degree alone. I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree with Dana on that one.
Yeah.
I think passion and skill is a big part of any industry. Like, because also my family, I've mentioned this before. My mother runs a costume shop. Her credentials are she has a degree in history. That has nothing to do with it, but she does use it to her advantage, where she knows more about medieval costumes and things like that than your average consumer. And she's able to apply that very well because she loves it. But her biggest thing is that she, had 2 kids, and she made our costumes for Halloween every flipping year. And she loved it, and it became a thing that grew and grew and grew to the point that she has a full business off of this. So, I think, again, having a passion for it, even if that passion's maybe not as obvious to others, or if it's like Howard's here, and having skills, natural skills, it says a lot more about you than just plain old, hey, I've got this degree I can hang on a wall.
Right, because there's lots of editors, and I've talked with, and this is part of where my my pet peeves with
grumble, girl.
Facebook groups tends to come into play, is because there.
Oh, now I understand why you were so irritated yesterday. that puts things in perspective. Continue.
Yeah, there was already some bitterness involved in that.
There's already some angst, and I added to it by saying I'm upset and I'm girly.
Yeah, because more often than not, people are just like, well, you can just do your own editing and it'll be fine. You don't have to have an editor. And it's like, okay, that is true. You don't have to have an editor.
Right.
Where I would caution people is that if you want to have a hobby as a writer, you don't need to ever get an editor. Ever.
Yeah,
if you want to make it
that's what you want, that's fine. Yeah.
If you want to make it a business, if you want to make a profit, if you want to live off of your pen, which is
if you wish to quit your day job.
Every author I know wants to do that. If that's what you want to do, then you have to think of it as a small business. You have to invest what you can to make that happen. That doesn't mean that you go drop $3,000 on the first editor who says, hey, I can edit a book.
Right.
Because people on Fiverr can do that. Right. And they have it for $25. And I have a whole different issue with Fiverr. That could be a whole different stream.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, that is one thing that I will be talking about with the editing panel.
Sweet.
Is, how you find editors, how you can hire editors, where, what, who, when, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in those cases, when you're not putting your best foot forward the first time around and
especially the first time around, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, you've got one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah. And if you screw it up, no one is ever going to pick up your book again.
Yeah.
And
in fairness, I will say every book has its niche. So there is that balance, right? Because here's the thing, and I'm not saying no to the editor side of things, but for the example, we've talked about that whole world building thing earlier. The book I mentioned earlier that makes me go, it has a fairly high ranking. Like, I wouldn't say it's super duper high. It's like 3.95 on Goodreads. So it's not, people like it. I don't like it. So you have to find that balance, I would say. But yeah, it does. Getting a professional opinion of someone you are paying to say what you screwed up is going to help because this person is paid not to kiss your ass like a beta reader kind of is, potentially, totally. Or your friends or your critique partners who love and care about you. This is a person you paid to say, what did I do wrong?
Right. Yeah.
And that's a very different field. So.
It is. It very much is. And you have to go in understanding that aspect of it. And when this comment pops up, because there it is. And yes, I agree with Dow. You should understand how to do an edit, but you also need to understand the levels of editing that are required. Developmental edit is always first and foremost on a draft because it is the structure, it is the plot, it is the arc. You can
it's the skeleton of your story, if we're all honest. It's a skeleton.
Absolutely. Because so often people will pay several thousands of dollars and they'll get back, they'll put it to the beta readers, and the beta readers are like, here's all these issues. And then they're mad at the editor because they didn't fix those issues. No. You don't get to blame a copy editor
for not fixing
doing a developmental editor's job.
Right.
It's not what you hired them to do.
Right.
You have to know at least the basics of what a developmental edit is, which is that big structure. Where are the plot holes? And it takes at least 4 to 6 weeks to do a good, proper developmental edit. Then you move on and you do, and even after you've done a developmental edit, you are too close and too biased to your story. You have to hire somebody else to come in and have a fresh perspective on that work. Again, that is if you want to make a living off of your book.
Right.
If you are just doing it and you're doing it for like Wattpad or you're going a traditional publishing route,
right? If
you're going to do the editors, you don't have to get an editor for that. You can get away with doing the minor edits yourself. But if you're going to self-publish, only you investing your time, your money, an editor has to come into the equation if you want to have it do it.
I do like this comment from Lauren, second from the bottom, because that's actually what I did. And, obviously we just talked about my writing still has some areas where I can improve. That's the whole thing. But I would agree that, going through several rounds, I think I did something ridiculous that people will go, like 9 rounds of beta readers on Blood Herring, not even joking there. And then I have 4 critique partners at this point. I love you all. Don't kill me. But having those feedback and be willing to hear it and look for those patterns, it will teach you a lot more about how to self-edit. And then when you come up to someone like Howard, you're going to get a big old compliment with some things that you still need to fix because we're never perfect, right? I'm going to publish this book and there's still going to be things that I think Sean said the best the other day. I'm going to publish this book. Hopefully one day I'll be big enough that I have to read this book at Barnes & Noble or something, and I'll be reading it and I'll be editing in my head going, why the hell did I write it that way? Because hopefully I'll get better as I go. Yeah.
Well, and that's something that I've told my students is that your best writing is always where you're at currently. You are always going to be writing better if you continue to learn how to improve your skills.
Right.
And so that's why we're always going to be self-editing to a point, because we've always progressed past previous point that we were at.
Right.
And I mean, I agree with critique partners. I have very strong opinions about betas in the sense that before it's public or before it's proofread and edited, highly edited, I don't ever recommend giving it to betas because they don't know what editors know to an extent.
I get where you're coming from on that, but at the same time, my book would not be nearly where it is without betas. I will not. Yeah. I did flat out tell them this has typos. This has every little thing because I have not ran it past an editor yet. So I'm just looking for your raw feedback on what you like, what you don't like. And if you happen to catch typo, let me know, but I'm not going to ask you to look for them.
Right. And for me, I look at it from a different process, even as an author myself, like,
right.
And this is something that I think I find more with brand new authors who are just like, who are just brand spanking new to writing.
Right.
That they take what the beta readers say as gospel and then try and change it. And then they lose themselves in that.
I will admit I did that, but I'm kind of glad I made that mistake. So it wasn't just the beta readers. It was also writing advice, because we know writing advice tends to get very especially here on YouTube, we tend to try and keep it short and simple to the point because we have people we're trying to give our view times up, blah, blah, blah. But the problem with that is then you get people, for example, the right advice I've heard constantly is keep your sentences short during fight scenes. I obviously overdid that. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that's an example. Or you can go that way with anything. The point is that when you try to present a paragraph of information in a bullet point of sentence, you lose a lot of the detail. And I think we have the capacity to overthink it and oversimplify it. Like, okay, now I need to include diversity. Okay, now it's a checklist. Okay, now I need to write shorter fight scenes. Now it's obnoxiously, repetitive, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on. So I think there's just a learning curve where at some point you have to find that balance between looking for advice and feedback and incorporating advice and feedback. Because again, you cannot please everybody.
Exactly.
But if 10 out of 10 people said your vampires are not sympathetic, which is feedback I've gotten, you may have a problem and you may want to fix that.
Yeah, exactly. So. And, to Dana's point, editors who charge a fortune, they're it's an intimidating thing to think of, like, holy crap, I have to spend $3,000 to try and fix up my book. Like, I'm not about that.
I think there is an honesty that needs to be had in the writing community about editors ahead of time, though, because like one thing I intend to do here in the future is a video called Writing Advice I Wish I'd Known at the Beginning. And one of the things is going to be save up your money because you don't know what you're going to need. Like in the very beginning, I thought I was traditionally publishing Bill Herring. Now, we've talked about this. I didn't go that route, not because I don't think it could, but because I don't think it should. I want to keep control of the book for various reasons. That means, okay, now I have expenses I'm not anticipating popping up on me. Now, I'm fortunate. I'm in a situation with very supportive family who's helping me with this, but not everyone has that. And if I'd known that 3 years ago, I would have had a lot more money saved up where I could go, okay, well, this sucks, but luckily I have a nest egg against it. I'm okay. And I think that's something we need to talk about for new writers is like, hey, if this is something where you even think you want to do this, you might want to start putting some money aside if you can, because you know what? Worst case scenario, you got money later.
Right.
Worst case.
And to Lauren's point here,
here's some details.
Phone thought I said, okay, Google. It does this like once a week. It thinks I say, okay, Google when I don't.
There's certain plot points I want to know if they're coming across the right way with betas in my target demo. And that's totally understandable. A good editor is going to do that anyway. And I totally understand. It's really where I'm coming from with betas coming at a later point is with the newer authors who are coming in. They get into, again, this falls into the Facebook writing groups that are support groups. And these betas have no effing clue what they're talking about. They are talking out their butts so much. And they have, and I come in and I try to be very respectful when I disagree with them. But they're like, just use betas and you'll be fine. I'm like, no.
No, I'd have to agree that that's a big no.
Wattpad, by all means. But here's the thing. When I was writing my Lord of the Rings fan fiction, I had beta readers. They were beta reading my fan fiction, and I was testing out different things on that target audience. I was using them for a very specific purpose. I was looking for feedback.
You were experimenting.
I was experimenting. For me, beta readers will be after I've edited my book, because first and foremost, I'm going to tell the story that I want to tell. I'm going to have a developmental editor who knows the mechanics of writing, which the vast majority of betas don't. Some of them do because they make a living at it. But then when I present it, it's going to be fully edited. I want the reader reaction. I don't want them editing my book. I want their visceral reactions to that. And if I've elicited those things that I'm looking for, I've done my job as an author.
See, I think that comes down to personal taste. And this is just my side that, absolutely. Well, the reason I say that is, number one, I also think it's up to new authors. If you come in and you're like, hey, I think I actually want to make something of this. Like when I came into Blood Herring, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with it. I just knew that I'd had this story in my mind since I was 15 years old. And I tried to write it, and I kept making excuses. And finally one day I was like, I'm going to go to my damn grave pissed about this. This is getting ridiculous. no. So I sat down and I just said, fuck it, let's figure it out. And, you know, when I was writing it, then the reason I kind of landed on Authortube is because I was looking for, funny enough, information on how to write fight scenes. Hey, this ties in. And I suddenly, you know, was overwhelmed. I will admit that I was overwhelmed. I think that's natural for every new writer by all the information I was finding. I was like, holy crap, what did I step in? But I think that comes down to, number one, understand that you're new to this and it's a new skill and you're going to have to learn things. Number two, that's where you also step in and educate yourself. Like when I went to my barriers first because I wanted to get those reader reactions, because I didn't want to submit the crummy draft to someone like you and then have to do it a second time, which I would have had to do because of my writing process. Like I said, my first draft was a completely different story. I had to see what it was like to fix it. And so for me, getting that beta reader feedback so I could see, that's where that problem is. I'm too close to see that these are unsympathetic vampires. I'm too close to see that Gabe is being put out of play and you don't get to know him very well, blah, blah. Allowed me to get to the point where I then could say, hey, you professional editor, here's my money and my heart and my soul, rip them apart and take the money. And, you know, I think you have to educate yourself, and you also have to figure out, okay, what do I need as a writer right now?
Yeah.
And how confident am I in the story? That's the other big key, is how confident are you that that's your story? Because mine's changed dramatically. It probably, had I wrote it, I want to be a writer, people. This is why Steven and his comrades exist. Anyway, but if I'd written it when I originally wanted to, it would, for sure, it wouldn't have been a romance, but it would have for sure been a YA novel, because I was young at the time. So sorry, I'm rambling. I'm gonna stop.
No, I mean that makes sense. Like, when I was using the betas for very specific feedback, because I needed to test out very specific ideas. That I don't disagree with. It's when people use betas for editors.
No, I agree. That's
no. Betas. And that's what, unfortunately, most people, especially in Facebook groups, use betas for, is as editors.
I have to agree. That's not acceptable. Yeah, that's not going to work. I mean, it's acceptable. It's your damn book. You do what you want, right? But it's not going to work very well. Betas are there to help you figure out what the reader's going to say, because the reader has a completely different opinion than myself or the bard here, as someone who works on the craft very, very heavily. All right, so we have gotten off topic forever.
Yeah, very much so. But
we're gonna have to plan
a time with Lauren to debate debate this.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, we would have to do another one.
Karen, I always do betas before editors with the warning it's unedited.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to rewrite a section because it's not working, even if they can't tell me why. I'd rather do it again before polishing. Yeah, like totally understand that. Again, it's a personal taste thing, and I'm talking more specifically for people who replace editors with beta readers, thinking that that's enough, and it's not.
Right.
They can be very helpful with the reader reactions, which we all need. Absolutely, we all need. Heather, it's okay. I will still accept the typos. At least you fill in the questions. I have people who fill it in, or they just request, and it sits there for like 3 days. I'll message them, sits there for another 3 days, and then they're like, they don't even answer. So I at least appreciate you've done that. Facebook support groups can be dangerous. You need to do your homework, then take advice, or when taking advice. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's 100% for anything writing related. Should be life related, but yeah.
Dell, beta readers are not editors. They do a very good job at helping us figure things because they read. That's the whole point.
Right.
It's when they switch, and especially naive authors believe that they will replace their editors because it'll save them money. It's when it gets dangerous for them. I'm so disappointed.
I had one of these. And she was super sweet, but the entire time I'm like, however, I will say this is one thing that made me reformulate. So I do 5-chapter surveys where every 5 chapters, my barriers get a little survey that says XYZ, question. How do you feel about this character? Could you visualize them? Blah, blah, blah. It used to have the questions on there every 5 chapters. What was your favorite scene? What was your least favorite scene? And one of my barriers who was doing this shit is the reason that it was changed later to, were there any scenes that interested you more than others? Why do you think you found that more interesting? And question number 2, were there any scenes that you found more boring or confusing than others? And is there anything in particular you would say would help with those scenes? Like, people who do this, I find, are the ones that I have to force them to give me bad feedback.
Yeah, and
those will eventually help you.
And those are the ones who are extremely dangerous, because the newer authors tend to get them, and they're like, oh my gosh, this was just the most amazing story since sliced bread. And then they send it to an editor like me, and they're like, I've had betas read it, and they said that it was amazing. And I read it, I'm just like,
yeah, and I guess the thing is, I'm kind of lucky that I'm my own worst enemy. The stream and the speed of light are only contestants. yeah. But I think I'm lucky in the sense that I've always been my own worst enemy. So I was able to say, well, I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and that's nice. I'm glad that, readers are enjoying it, but that doesn't mean I can't improve. So what can I do to make it so I'm forced to improve? What can I do to force myself outside my comfort zone?
Yeah, and what was interesting was I was watching a video by Shadow University, and it was talking about, he was actually coming out against somebody else who had been attacking his expertise as a medieval enthusiast. And I mean, like, this guy, he's built a castle in his backyard. Like, it is fantastic. And he was talking about the snobbish elitists in these type of niche groups. And unfortunately, we are going into that side tangent.
It's just what happens.
It does.
When the Hows get together, it's how the hell do they stay on topic?
It is one of those things that becomes incredibly dangerous for readers, because those snobbish elitists are my arch nemesis. Like, if I have a villain in my story as a business, it are those snobbish people who think that they're better than everybody else. I had someone straight up
sniff their own farts
at a farmer's market and say, do you have a book published? No, I'm actually in the process of working on it, and this is what I do to allow me to do that. They're like, you shouldn't be helping people with their books then. You have no idea what it means. And I'm like, I thank you for your useless opinion, and goodbye.
Yeah,
and that's how people are in those types of groups.
Yeah.
And they discourage people from writing. And
are you two related?
If I'm just as passionate about people telling a good story, I am equally as passionate, if not more vindictive, against people who destroy authors' dreams before they begin.
Again, this is starting to put context onto yesterday. So much context.
So much context. I was already in an incredibly bad mood. I'm
sorry.
No, it wasn't you. It was.
I'm sorry I added to it though.
This is the kind of stuff that frustrates me, and why I'm so passionate about doing educational type stuff on YouTube, helping people who have no idea what pen, what side of the pen to hold to write the story. Because every single person has a story. It's a matter of whether they are aware and are able to engage their imagination in such a way.
Or interested. Interested is a big part. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so I hate to say this, but my husband called an hour ago, and I'd like to, because my husband never calls me, so I'd like to make sure he's not like on the side of the road with a flat tire or something.
Yeah,
I assume he would have called again, but you know what I mean.
He's not dead.
Yeah, he's not dead yet. So before we wrap this up, does anyone else have any additional questions or?
Agreeing with Heather, I can't say I'm snobs. I think the question was, are we related? No.
No, I said when the Hows get together, because he's Howard and I'm Howell. So yeah, I probably could have enunciated that. That's my fault.
Lauren's her own worst critic, have destroyed your dreams many times. Literally every author since the beginning of history ever.
I think every good author, because there's a key E.L. James author who has been known for blowing air up her own ass, basically. And you know, again, she wrote a story that people love. I've never read it, but I think she would probably have done better had she just been a little bit more had some humility is the term I'm looking for.
Yeah. And see, to Lauren's point, most of what I do is I help build the confidence of the author that I'm working with, not just from the developmental edit, but especially through the mentoring and coaching side of things. I can pinpoint what your voice and what your writing style is based on what you write. And then I help you do that better.
Yep.
That's what I do, because everybody,
I think that's what a good author
in their writing.
Yeah, I think that's what a good editor does as a general rule, is they help you work with it. They see the clay you've got to work with. They help you figure out how you can mold it better.
Yep,
so.
Exactly.
All right. So, shameless self plugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You start.
All right. For those who are unfamiliar, which I don't think that's anyone here, but my name is A.S. Howell. You will find me under the Adorkable author, which I did see that the link is right down below. So thank you. Thank you, Howard. I mostly do animated booktube channels, though I do the occasional live video when I have something either very personal to talk about, writing wise, don't worry, or when I have a book review. Those are going back to live because they are just too tedious to record animated. Otherwise, lots and lots of controversial videos over there. So enjoy the drama.
And I am the editing bard, also known as the Bard, and I do developmental editing and story coaching. And I also have writing courses, which I have mentioned earlier. Links for everything are down below if you want to follow me on Twitter, Facebook. I'm not active on Instagram, so I mean, you can follow me there if you want. It'll just be updates on YouTube stuff. I have a free writing template down below in the comments, which is going to help you write faster and more consistently in whatever way consistent looks to you if you follow it. I've tried this with over 20 different authors and has been successful for every single person who has done it. And I have tons of videos on editing, what a developmental editor is, how fan fiction can help you, creating a writing process, and cringeworthy videos. If you just want to watch me just lose what's left of my hair by yanking it out as I review horrible writing in movies, please enjoy Wreck-It Ralph, Robin Hood.
I like Wreck-It Ralph.
And I'm sure there will be more. I have a list. I have a whole folder. I just haven't worked my way up to yet. So that is everything. What someone said something.
Very informative stream. Thank you. It was great talking about editing. Lots of compliments.
Yes. Love that. Love not just and
people putting down snobs, so woohoo for that.
Yes, we love putting down snobs. Yes, it is amazing. Yeah, the self-editing video I think will help. And if just as a reminder, links down below for the editing broadcast that I'm going to be doing in 2 weeks from now. It's going to be the same time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. East. And I'm going to have 3 other editors, and we're going to be going through different questions. So please fill out the form. We want to answer your questions. I have questions that I've already kind of looked up, so that way we have things to talk about. So we're not just like the entire time. So it will be fantastic. I'm super excited to have these people. I already have a list of a second group ready to go for Ask the Editors. So you'll be able to, will be able to find that. The Last Airbender movie. I will also take suggestions for cringeworthy reviews. Like I will absolutely do that. Whether it's in the comments or in the chat or down in the comments, definitely check it out and let me guys know. So thank you guys so much. And thank you, Howell, for joining me and talking about pretty much everything. Granted, I did leave us an out. I did say vampires, Game of Thrones, and more.
That's fair.
I added on more. So anyone who's made it to this and they're like, they stopped talking about fight scenes like an hour and a half ago. There are valid reasons.
We are a tangent city, I swear. Last time we had Sean to keep us on topic, but
yeah, the sultry sounds of his British accent.
All right. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us. Make sure you like the video down below. It does help quite a bit, and feel free to share it.
Yes. Thank you, guys.